Hey.
Hello.
That's right. We're timely with the discussion episode this time.
Wow.
How do you fucking like that? How are you? I hope you're all enjoyed our playthrough of Volume 2 of Misericorde here. I know we had a wonderful time, and I think it's high time we sat down and maybe talked out some shit. How do you feel about that, Viv?
I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah? Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess let's start off with some of the easy ground layer stuff here. Like, how are we feeling about the new characters right now? There's something easy to just kind of ease us into everything, all right? We're not going to jump into the deep end. We got introduced to some new folks this time around, and I'm curious what we think of them.
I appreciate that they're Popoco and Pipimi coded.
They are! God, Violet and Bridget are basically Popoco and Pipimi.
Or like or like 2/3 of Keep Your Hands Off Izoken cast.
Yes,
I forgot the names of those two.
We got the tall one and the squat one. All they're missing is the middle-sized one, which is Flora. Wait, hold on. They're just the Izoken. I like them a lot. I'm kind of curious what their general purpose to the general involvement in the overall story is going to be. Because they kind of showed up late and immediately made a quick exit.
It'll be dope if that's just it.
Here's the thing. I don't want to discredit any part of anything they have to do with the plot, but it really feels like they just kind of obviously they don't have anything to do with how Catherine died.
Unless they do.
Right, because they weren't here for it.
Unless they were.
So you're going to have to be more helpful than that.
Engaging.
But it's like they showed up, clearly wanting to come to the lesbian sex place, right?
Are like, oh crap, it's not like that anymore.
It's like, oh, that's not all we get to do here. And then seemed to immediately check out with Flora at the first opportunity. I genuinely don't think they're going to have any involvement in the larger plot beyond kind of their service in the narrative of being like a reminder that this is not a closed circle, right? People come in and out, and also having some fun conversations that kind of help to elucidate what the status, like what people know at this point in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that. Also, there were just some well-needed comic relief, right? Like the whole discussion about where Ethiopia is. Like, not only is that good at kind of like helping place us in like what people know in this time, in this time period, but also helps in being just, oh right, this game is just funny sometimes.
That it is.
We get introduced to anyone else new this time? Yeah, Crispin.
Yeah,
Crispin's cool. He is one cool dude. Again, hard to see how he would be relevant to the plot overall, unless. And well, there's like one way he might be involved. I'm thinking.
Yeah, what's that?
Remember the very first scene of the game?
Yes.
This big conspiracy involving the War of the Roses. It feels like if there is indeed a conspiracy connected to that scene, which why else would we show it, right? Then it feels like there has to be an out group from the Abbey who are involved in that conspiracy, right? And maybe that's a way that Crispin could be involved with that. I'm not saying that that's true or even plausible, but other than that, he just seems like a rad dad and a good example of how one can invent a story to cover over something they really wanted to do anyway. right?
Mm-hmm.
In this case, punishing a dude for being a peeping Tom. Anyone else new? We got to see more of Tricky Dick this time around, but we already talked about him. I think we're caught up on the newbies. Those are all the ones I really wanted to chat about. However, I think that discussion actually brings me back to something from Volume 1. Like, we should talk about this. We now have a bunch of different historical events, all roughly contemporaneous, but all kind of alluded to in the background of this story, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have very explicitly the War of the Roses, which was alluded to in Volume 1 and then called out explicitly in Volume 2 as a potential factor. We have parallels to the modern IRA from the 1980s. That is something that is brought up, again, pretty explicitly in the text. And we also have the goddamn Christopher Columbus of it all. Who, as we talked about, is roughly contemporaneous with all this, right?
Yep.
So, how the fuck do all these fit together?
They probably don't all fit together.
Is it the fact that, like, these are all various things going on and all things that factor into people's to different groups or different individuals' motivations? Like, it's not that there's a whole mix of them, that it's just that some people are motivated by their position within the War of the Roses, and some are, like, really concerned about, I guess, future Christopher Columbuses going to the new... No, that's weird, isn't it? Christopher Columbus hasn't yet set sail for the New World, the thing that he is most known for, and someone in 1980 looking at him would be like, oh, that's what I know him for.
Yep.
But at this point, he's just sailing up the African coast, right?
I do believe so.
Right, so, like, what on earth... So in the 1400s, what would someone thinking about Christopher Columbus think about him? Like, there's that strange dandy who's got notions that, you know, you can reach India by going the long way around.
Maybe. I don't even know how widely known that was.
Yeah, because that's the part about the Christopher Columbus being brought up that feels strange, right? Obviously, in retrospect, we can see, like, oh, that's important because this is him ramping up for the thing that he'll become known for, which is, you know, heavy air quotes, discovering the New World and beginning the first mass wave of, like, European migration over to that half of the globe. But what the fuck does that have to do with this murder in an abbey? Is the story still about Catherine with the C's murder? Is that still what we're trying to do here? Or are we trying to understand something larger about this?
I think it's about nuns having fun.
Really knocking it out of the park this episode, Vivian. I mean, I guess to a degree, I think some of this is nuns having fun. Clearly, ZC is enjoying themselves. but in a real sense, like, what are we to learn from this story? What are we as readers trying to put together here? Is it just solving Catherine's murder and the rest comes with it? Is that enough to feel like we've engaged with it fully, or is it that we really want? Is that just the gateway to getting us to figure out more about this particular historical era, where England is in a state of political upheaval? The world is about to be the European-centered world is about to be fundamentally changed, right, within a decade's time.
It is unclear to me how to answer this question.
Fair enough. Sorry, I feel like I'm doing a lot of the talking here. Well, if Chrissy C is involved, right, I think the most likely vector connecting the two was the sherry, right?
Yeah, that we should probably verbally say. So Christopher Columbus did bring Sherry with him on his journey to the New World. Sherry takes some time to make.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something like, hey, this was the abbey that happens to make the sherry that he took with him.
Right. And maybe that's related somehow to, and maybe that's the bigger importance, is that what's going on here is going to have a larger domino effect onto Mr. C's voyage. The other potential way that actually you came up with that bringing him up might be important is something that might be hiding in an anachronism, right? An anachronism. Something that maybe couldn't have been there until the discovery of the New World.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That was something you had come up with. One thing that we did kind of look into in terms of anachronisms was glasses. Right? Because glasses at this time period do indeed exist, but not really in the way that Eustace has them.
I don't read much into this.
Here's
it's true, but I don't
true.
read. I don't really
glasses
read
at this
into
point do exist, but they're not. They're the over the ear style of glasses is not contemporaneously a thing, and that. I don't know. I'd be able to dismiss it too if it were on anyone except for Eustace. Right? The one person who seems to have their nose and everything, who seems to be trying to purposely inserting themselves into Hedwig's investigations and trying to avert what's going on. It's really I don't know. It's a little bit on the nose. Or maybe it's just a stylistic choice, and we're making a big thing out of it. I'm looking at ZC's Bandcamp page right now, and their profile picture is a nun with those same Eustace-sized glasses. So maybe it's just a thing.
Hopping back a bit, I just realized it doesn't make any sense for this sherry to be Christopher Columbus's sherry, because the monastery is to be destroyed in a year or so or less by fire.
So it may be the case that it's not the sherry he winds up taking, but it may be the case that it was the sherry they were planning on him taking.
And at this point, how could it be what they planned on him taking when he hasn't planned this voyage yet?
That is actually he's spoken about wanting to do it for a while, right?
Yeah, but it's in no way approved at this point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It takes decades.
So that even that's kind of
happen.
tenuous. Wow. So everything I thought I had connecting Chrissy C to this is just, what the hell, man? What are you doing in this story about English nuns?
The best theory that I heard, I cannot take credit for. It either came from Reddit or from the Misericorde Discord, and I don't remember who, but someone floated, yes, Catherine had visions of the Antichrist, and it was indeed a vision of Christopher Columbus's voyage to the New World and the horrors that would result from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so Catherine was trying to poison Christopher Columbus.
It's tidy. I guess.
Is it tidy?
It's tidy in the sense that it ties these two things together pretty neatly. And I have to give it that. I think the problem with that is that, do we then say that Catherine legitimately had visions of the future?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that is indeed what this theory is saying.
The thing is, I think there's one other thing we need to really talk about pretty soon to the top of this, because it's going to color a lot of our theories about what's going on here. And that is, what is the state of what is the nature of the narrative that Hedwig is telling us? During chapter 1, I had I had put a lot of theories aside that we don't know who she's telling this to or when, and that might color the way that she's telling things, right? If it is the case she's the only survivor, she might be the only account. We now know when she's telling this to somebody, and can take a stab at who. She is indeed back in her original Anchoress cell. It's not any other kind of cell. And she seems to be talking to someone through her same hagioscope at Linbarrow Abbey in the aftermath of the ending of Volume 2.
Mm-hmm.
The killing of the Stoop and the killing of James. Tricky Dick going off and running wherever he's off to. So, that kind of precludes. She doesn't know who she's talking to, right? She's said before she can't recognize people by voice, so this could be anyone there who would care to listen. And that changes things, right? These are fresh memories she's relating, and if there are indeed discrepancies with what other people say, it's an easy enough thing to check. So there'd be very little incentive for Hedy to actively lie about things when, you could just as quickly ask somebody else if that really happened. And weirdly enough, that gives me a stronger reason to believe her strange visions and stuff, that she really did experience those. For a while, I genuinely thought there's a very kind of conspiratorial way in which using the notion of visions might be a way to deflect some interest away from things she didn't want to discuss, but I don't know, it doesn't seem like that really is the case if anyone else can be brought up and questioned about a thing. If you also can talk to any number of the other people involved in this. But that's just one layer of it. The other layer of it is this even literally what happened? And we have good reason to doubt that now.
Yep.
Right? Because we have the introduction of a literal novel, a work of generous historical fiction that has details based in fact.
Mm-hmm.
I think is the best way of putting it. In the modern day narrative, which, for all we know, could be what we are reading in Hedy's narrative. I think it would be... Knowing that, I think it would be stranger if it wasn't.
What would be stranger if it wasn't?
I think it would be stranger if we had the introduction of this novel in the future, and then also had the narrative running parallel, but also the novel isn't related to what we've been. The novel, it'd be weirder if the novel described a completely different series of events, right? I think that would require more explanatory power than just saying we are indeed reading what's in the novel. But that's my thought on it. You seem poised to say something.
Yeah, mostly just would it though? That we might see the events, and then there also might be a book about the events. Doesn't seem surprising or confusing to me.
So, but it would seem weirder that if the book about those events described them in a different way than what we are hearing from Hedy's account. Do you not feel that way?
I don't know, and I'm also, are we talking about we are reading the book, or are we talking about the book is saying the same things that happened? Because those seem to be two pretty different assertions, right?
You are making a good point, yeah. So when what I am contending is that it makes the most sense if the version of events that Hedy is relating to us, or and in her story, are the same version of events depicted in the book None Left Alive.
I put it to you that we have no idea what's in None Left Alive, so there's not really anything...
I understand what you're saying. I think it would be weirder to introduce that as a narrative device and then have it be completely unrelated.
Counterpoints. I can't make this counterpoint without spoiling another work. Never mind. But you know what I'm going to say.
Checkmate.
You know what I'm going to say.
Well, look at it from this perspective, right? It's a Chekhov's gun thing, right? You've introduced... It's similar. It's not a literal Chekhov's gun, but you've introduced an element into the narrative and set up expectations around it. Like, oh, there is a book about these events. Huh. It would be strange if it was different.
I think there would be nothing strange about there being multiple versions of events because the chapter has specifically talked about that.
Okay.
It would be stranger if there weren't.
Okay.
That's my
stranger.
take.
That's fun. That is a valid opinion to have.
We've already seen Future Eustace critique the book and have disagreements with Tatiana about such things.
Because by Tatiana's own admission, right, the version is kind of spiced up. It's a little sexier. There's
some,
again, historical fiction grounded in fact. But I think it's also important to know that both of them agree that that doesn't mean that there isn't anything to learn from it, right? Because they're like, it got that detail right. Whatever that detail might be. There's clearly something still important to learn here. And pardon the term, but I think it would still have the scent of truth about it. You know what I mean? In that, even if the events themselves are fabricated, that the characters are still acting somewhat consistently with what they have in their motivations, and like factual things about the history and the lay of the land we can take as solid.
I see. So you're arguing that None Left Alive is actually a good book.
Is that what I'm arguing? I don't think it has to be good for me to be arguing that, does it?
But it's funnier to argue this.
I appreciate that, but we're also in the discussion episode. We're supposed to be serious now. One other interesting thing about None Left Alive is who is on the cover. And it ain't Hedy. And it ain't Catherine II. It's Catherine I. And I think this was the biggest thing that kind of changed my thinking about the entire series so far. I've said it during the playthrough and I'll say it again. I think Catherine with a K is our main character. And while Hedy might be the narrator, I think this story is going to come down to... I think the really important things to take away from this story are the details about Catherine with a K. It looks like in the future she's going to get blamed for what happens afterwards, right?
Yep.
Because, her face is the one emblazoned on the cover. And she's also a lot more than other characters. We've gotten a lot of time delving into her motivations and backstory. And I can totally believe that we've got a surrogate main character hiding off here just kind of off to the side while we're looking at someone else who also happens to be named Catherine. Yeah, it's a game about Catherine.
So what then of the murder and so on? Is that just a red herring for a story that's actually about something unrelated?
I don't think it's unimportant. It's obviously, I don't think the murder of Catherine with a C is unimportant, right? But I don't think that who Catherine with a C was is ultimately what we want to be discovering in this narrative. I think what we really want to be learning is who Catherine with a K was, and how that led to her in the future being the one who seemingly takes the blame for everything that would happen. Because in the future, the story isn't Catherine II was murdered. In the future, the story is the Abbey is burnt down, almost everyone, so many people died here.
How do you mean?
What do you mean, how do I mean?
That does happen later, right?
Yeah.
So, you said the story isn't that people were murdered, that instead this thing happened, but that's not true, right?
What I'm saying is that the way the game Misericorde that we have been playing has been framed up until now has been framed as a murder mystery surrounding one person's particular death.
Mm-hmm.
In the future, however, the story that they are reading is about the slow decline and eventual implosion of an abbey in England. Do you see the difference in framing there, and how what we're trying to learn changes slightly here? That's not to say it's not important to find out who killed Catherine with a C, but I think ultimately that's just one stepping stone on what we are trying to take away from this. I don't think that's the end. I don't think solving who killed Catherine is the end-all be-all. I think solving who killed Catherine is the first step to elucidating things that'll explain why the things at the Abbey ended the way they did, and how the hell Christopher Columbus ties into all this. Still gotta be in my bonnet about that man. What is he doing here? God. Now that we got that out of the way. Well, I guess we should say this explicitly. Do we think that historically the events at Linbarrow happened as described in Hedwig's retelling of events?
I think not exactly, because doesn't she explicitly say that some of them were not true and had to be told this way because they're what she thought at the time and so on?
Okay. Then a more refined question. Do we think that historically the person Hedwig von Trier at that abbey at those times experienced those things that she is relaying in the narrative? Or do we think that like the question I'm trying to get at is, even if reportedly what Hedwig sees, do we think historically that's what the historical Hedwig saw, or are we conceding that these events might not be 100% accurate to history?
I don't know.
Okay, then that's a fair answer. I think it's an important question to ask, right? Because it's kind of the thing we were talking where like there is indeed the scent of truth about it, perhaps, but it might be a mistake to say that these are literally the events that occurred there. It might be, as Tatiana would say, like a historically informed but still fictive work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's interesting because that means that there is indeed a historical set of events that took place here that are similar but still distinct to what goes on in this narrative. And that opens up so many interesting possibilities because it's like, so now it's not just like, because now it's like, it becomes more important to learn what the lay of the land was like there, right? Because that's where the actual grounded details are. Where the important little bits of bedrock are hiding in this fictitious narrative. I don't know. I saw people complaining that, hey, if the whole thing is made up, then what's the point of it? Okay, and I'm trying to be like, I'm trying to just specifically counter those people and be like, nah. Trust the process.
Counterpoint. Of course, the whole thing is made up. It's in a video game that you can purchase at itch.io.
Okay, so counterpoint. You know that's not helpful because that's not the way in which I meant that. I meant within the fiction of the story itself that the events are themselves fiction. Yeah. Are you just dedicated to being unhelpful today?
No. I legitimately think that it's a valid counterpoint to the it's all made up. Like, yeah, of course it is. Like, we think stories matter. We're reading one.
Okay, so you're not saying that it's... So you're not saying, of course, it's fiction in the kind of vapid way that we're reading a fictive story. Ugh. You're pointing out that you yourself are reading a story and therefore think that there's something valuable to be had from it.
Yeah.
This being a fictive story within the fiction of the universe doesn't mean that there isn't something to be found there.
Yeah.
Okay. You understand how that's not quite the same as what you were saying?
No, I don't. I think that's precisely the same.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. Oh, I love you.
I love you.
I feel like I need to remind you of that very often because sometimes I call you silly. Should we talk about our Time Lords?
Perhaps.
Let's start with Eustace. Because Eustace has been my favorite for a while.
Right? Really?
Well, since Volume 1, I like her.
I didn't know this.
I think she's great. Do you think I just give rat voice to anyone who I dislike?
Yeah, I didn't know she was your favorite.
Maybe it's a bit of horse following the cart there, but still. It is. What are we to make of the fact that there are two people named Eustace who appear in both the we'll still call it present. I know it's been like, God, it's 70 years ago. No, it's not 70 years ago. I can't math.
Yes, it's 70 years ago.
40 years ago. Thank God.
The 1980s were 70 years ago.
God, it feels like it though, doesn't it? I'm still going to call it the present day narrative, even though it's the 1980s. Just work with me on it.
Can you believe the year 2020 was 35 years ago?
God.
It's been so long since
It has
COVID.
been. It really has been, though. Okay, sorry, I got my numbers wrong. I have a degree in mathematics. Did you know that? But in the present day narrative, there is this gentleman named Eustace, right?
Yeah.
Who, for all intents and purposes, appears to be the same as this Eustace who appears in the past narrative. What are we to take from that? I'll open it up to you. I have some thoughts, but I'll open it up to you.
So, first theory.
Yep.
The whole Eustace witchcraft thing is just true.
So Eustace is literally a witch going back in time to try and change events.
What about, doesn't need to be going back in time. Just Eustace is depicted as Hedwig is suspicious. She's engaging in horrible witchcraft and so on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And is immortal now and is still around.
So just to be clear,
this is the historical Eustace.
The historical Eustace engages in witchcraft and does indeed engage in witchcraft.
Yeah.
Becomes immortal.
Yeah.
Okay, or if
gender swaps at some point.
Gender swaps at some point. I mean, you're living for a while. Got to try things out,
exactly.
Right? And then is still there in the present day.
Yeah. So that's theory number one.
Okay, I that's not inconsistent theory.
Yeah.
I have one major question that might put a hole in this.
What is that?
Why would future Eustace need to be taking college courses?
For the heck of it?
I guess.
Learning is cool.
Okay, no, never mind. Retracted. Learning is so cool. I guess I should also the other elephant in the room. Then that means, so we are then conceding that magic is real.
But I got you to go that far before freaking that up. But also, no, pausing for a bit. Also, if anybody in the if anybody in the cast would go to college for fun, tell me it's not Eustace.
I think Darcy would.
Maybe.
I feel like Darcy would to go to college to learn about the things she wanted to. Eustace would be a lifelong person. I'm gonna say I'll say he, because we're talking about potentially present Eustace now. I think he would continue to go to college every so often just to keep track of how things are moving along in the world.
Yeah.
Right? Gotta make sure. Got just a pocket full of degrees right now. Okay, so I'm not saying that's an unreasonable thing to say. I'm just saying that does mean we are operating in a universe where magic is real. And that's okay. We don't know that it isn't. But I do want that I want that axiom to be explicit in this case.
Mm-hmm.
Like magic or we'll call it magic, but things outside the scope of what we would expect from baseline reality. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. That's a good theory for number one.
Theory number two.
Mm-hmm.
Eustace and Tatiana are just dueling authors.
This is another fun one where they're like, because and the compelling thing about this is that there is kind of a fix-it fanfic quality to them being there, isn't Eustace being involved in the narrative. Like Eustace in the past does have the stank of a self-insert who knows everything and is trying to guide events along, using her future knowledge to try to prevent things from getting too out of control. And I can see that. I love fan fiction. I know this genre. It's a good genre. And they are both explicitly introduced as authors.
Yep.
As author characters, right? Which is important.
Misericorde is actually the story of a big feud between two high-profile AO3 authors.
Yeah. God. And it's not just AO3 authors, they're historical fiction.
For the same historical time period.
For the same historical time period. These aren't just These aren't just your Renaissance type fans or your fucking, what do you call Jane Austen era? Regency bullshit, right? We're both writing fiction for the same abbey at the same time in the 1400s, and for some reason we can only publish the one book. I think it's interesting that Tatiana positions herself as the editor and not the author.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whether or not she's adding stuff on her own, I think she still kind of concedes that ground to Eustace as being the author.
Wait, so are you saying it's implied that Eustace wrote?
Oh, you're right. That is kind of a jump I made, isn't it? It does seem like it, doesn't it?
Does it?
Doesn't it?
It seems like Eustace has rather intense distaste for the book. I didn't get anything about Eustace having wrote it.
Right? Yeah, I didn't say. Well, of course they have a distaste for it.
Yeah, but like, what makes you think that Eustace wrote that book?
Eustace knew enough to alter what was. Have to get into reality bending at that point. That Eustace seemed to have some knowledge of what indeed was in it and some authorial control over it as well. And that Tatiana was like, "Oh, is that what he put in there? Did he also get the last page? Did you happen to check that one?"
There's it could be that they work for the same publishing company.
It could be. But I think that would be more of a stretch.
And even so, being an author of a thing, how would that help you to specifically sabotage the print edition of a thing? Are the authors typically going in and printing it themselves? Like, it's a weird event no matter what.
It's a doujin. Yes, they are printing it themselves, and I will die on this hill. No, you do bring up a good point, though. I guess well, let's. Do you have any other ideas for what the state of Tatiana and Eustace might be?
Not really.
Okay. Again, the one I suggested kind of in jest during the playthrough was Time Lord theory, right? ZC goes out of their way to bring up Dr. Hoomst, and them being time travelers of some variety. I guess that's kind of the same theory as witch theory, because it involves kind of reaching for some supernatural state of affairs in order to explain things, right? At that point, whether it's the cart before the horse or the horse, in front of the cart, doesn't really matter. We've already broken that barrier.
Wait. This also explains Eustace's gender swap. This is one of Eustace's next regenerations.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Doctor doesn't usually regenerate into bodies that are that strikingly similar, right?
Yeah, they're usually somewhat different bodies, aside from rare cases where they want to bring back a beloved actor.
Got it. Okay, yeah, understood. I got you now. I understand now. I don't know anything about Dr. Hoomst. This is going to be so hard.
But yeah, the Time Lord's got to regenerate, so that gets us the gender swap. And Tatiana and Eustace journeying through time, being frenemies. You've kind of got the Master and the Doctor rivalry pair going on, and yet
I don't know who the
actually,
Master is. That sounds like some weeb
shit. It'll only take you several years to marathon the whole thing.
Understood. But you also bring up an important point that I want to bring up. We first saw Tatiana in a nun's habit.
Yeah.
We first saw Tatiana talking to us from the setting of the 1400s, where she also appeared to be dressed for that.
Although,
where is Tatiana in the 1400s? Is she present, or is it just Eustace? And that's just her getting into character for the fun of it.
Is she not speaking to us from the game's menu also?
Yes, she is. But there was a decision made for her to get into a nun's habit and kind of match the tone of it. Which maybe that is it. Maybe she is just matching the tone. I'm just saying if she seems to be roughly on par with Eustace and what the two of them and how the two of them relate to the narrative, right? So if Eustace is also there in the 1400s, might Tatiana be there?
We haven't seen Tatiana, it seems. So.
We haven't. There's only one person who's a character in that whose body we've never seen. You ready for this?
I'm ready for this.
Tatiana was Catherine II.
All right.
Hell yeah! I think it's worth... Do I think that's actually the case? No, but if we start hearing stuff in Volume 3 about, oh, Catherine with the C, yeah, her hair was always in her eyes. It was hard to tell what she was thinking. I'm just saying, it would be strange for one of the two of them to be involved in the past and not the other. And if Tatiana is indeed there, there's one person whose appearance is effectively amorphous, other than that they are Irish. Do we ever get the color of Tatiana's hair in the present?
I don't recall.
I think we knew that Catherine was a redhead. With a C. Yeah, no, I'm right about this. And modern Tatiana's got ins with the IRA. What do you... Perfect. It's a flawless case. No holes, no notes. How do you think Tatiana is involved in the past, if at all? Or is she just a character kind of outside the narrative, or only exists in that modern time period? And her appearances in the menu stuff are just kind of for fun.
I think it's likely the latter.
Okay, and that's a fine opinion to take. So we aren't meant to really take anything more from her appearance being in the menu, from her talking directly to the player, from her having these VHS stories she found lying around. That is just for fun. And Tatiana, as far as the narrative goes, is just someone in the 1980s who has ambiguously reality warping powers. I suppose we should also talk about that as well. There, of course, is a version of events where what we are seeing in the 1980s narrative is presented selectively to make things seem more mysterious than they are. Maybe Tatiana is indeed someone who Jim knows and they don't talk to each other by name because they're both involved in a conspiracy, right? That there is something like... There is an explanation that doesn't have to be weird and magical. But reading the narrative on its face does make it seem like they've got... Like, Tatiana has this nearly magical ability to smooth things over. Right? Gets a ride for Alex from the airport seemingly out of nowhere. And, it somehow seems to have time move in a strange way.
Yep.
Right? Again, this could be just selective artifacts of how the narrative is shown to us, right? There's a scenario where, say, Eustace knew Alex was coming to London without much of a plan and said, hey, Tatiana, could you make sure that they don't get stuck at the fucking airport or something? And Tatiana, who is indeed friends with Jim because they're both involved in the same conspiracy, but also kind of talk around that with one another in business time, right? Make sure that Alex gets picked up and taken care of, so that way Eustace's friend isn't in limbo while they're doing whatever it is they're doing. That is a cogent version of events. But maybe it's more fun if they're Time Lords. At a minimum, the way they talk about things makes it seem like the way the narrative is presented makes it seem like they have limited abilities to change things based on what the other person has clarified and set in stone and what they might have missed, what is in the cracks. Like, Tatiana keeps talking about plot holes and consistency and stuff like that, and trying to make sure that things still have to line up. Like, from that presentation, it seems like she can do whatever as long as it doesn't, no matter how tortured the logic is, it can still make sense with what has been established. And it also seems that Eustace can establish those rules. Which is strange to think about. I don't know. What do you think? Do present day Eustace and Tatiana seem at least like magical, or is it just Or are they mundane and the narrative is kind of eliding that?
It definitely seems weird. I don't know that I have a great deal more to say than that, but it definitely seems weird.
It does, doesn't it? Again, I don't want to dismiss the power that the narrative eliding certain details can have, right? But, I don't know, it does seem... I am always hesitant to reach for the "it's magical" button, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's not fair. Not every story has to be a down-to-earth, a very no-frills mystery game like that. Some valid mystery games indeed do have magical elements. That's fine. But I'm always hesitant to reach for it. Because it feels like as soon as you do, then you start letting in so many other things along with it, right? So I have to wonder. Are we willing to hit the magic is real button?
I don't know.
Are we ready to accept the narrative that has been put before us? No, you don't want me to. We're hands are off the big red button for now. We're not committing to anything either way at this point in time. Here's another good question. How does Alex relate to that narrative? Is Alex just the convenient bystander who's by being at those places at those times and with that incidental connection to Eustace is a good vehicle for the narrative? Or does Alex also connect in some way to the past narrative? Obviously, there's the parallels between Alex and Flora, right?
And also that Alex is allegedly a relative of Catherine.
With a C.
Yeah.
So there's like those aren't unimportant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that it though? Do you think Alex is also somehow involved in Time Lord shenanigans, or are they the token mundane person here to help?
We haven't seen anything weird with Alex, so I don't see a reason to suppose so.
That's true. I think my concern comes from at 2/3 of your friends appear to have some strange stuff going on. There is also one other thing about Eustace in the present narrative that I want to point out is important. I mean, obviously, this is something we had been suspecting since, I think, literally the first episode. But Eustace in the present narrative makes it very clear. People don't have to stay one gender, right? And I think that's also part of Eustace's from a narrative structure, from a narrative perspective. I think that's part of why it's important that Eustace shows up that way in the present. Because it gets the reader primed to think of like, oh, right, that's something just people can do, and something we have already been presupposing for a while in the case of, say, the prince who lets James out of his cell, right? We've been supposing for a while that person is presenting in a masculine manner. And, Moira... But that's also not like, that's neither here nor that's just kind of like a thing to point at, I guess. Priming. It's a priming factor, right? Do we have anything else we want to mention on the present day narrative before we move on?
It's certainly interesting that both past and present narrative are involve a conspiracy to kill someone.
Yep.
That's weird, huh?
Yeah, and that's a very intentional parallel.
And an inner circle of folks involved in it, and someone stumbling into that inner circle and not being ready for it and getting dragged along.
Do you think that can be taken as a parallel for events in the past? Like maybe we can see that as instructive for how things might have gone along?
Maybe.
I do think there's also one other important detail about the present narrative that I neglected to bring up, but I think we should talk about now.
What is that?
Who was Alex talking to?
How do you mean?
Alex, in their narrative, appears to be talking to someone. They say things like, and like, make corrections to themselves in order to be present there, and do a whole lot of hemming and hawing that seems to imply that they are relating this narrative to someone.
I didn't get that at all.
Really?
Yeah, it seemed pretty clear that Hedwig was talking to people, but I didn't get any of that at all for Alex.
That's so strange. It immediately struck me that way. Because they go to a lot of trouble to like pause and correct their language, things they wouldn't be doing in like an internal narrative. They make a lot of like the voice that they are using to write is not I did this. I did this. It has something of a distance from it that makes it feel like it's being related. Is it... That could just be me seeing things that aren't there, but like I do wonder if Alex is relating this narrative to someone. But if you don't agree with me, then I might be just flat out wrong. I could just be wrong. What do we think modern day Alex thinks of Pink Floyd's seminal double album, The Wall?
Thinks it's overblown wank, but secretly listens to it once in a while and is like, oh, this bangs.
That kind of checks out. The punks aren't allowed to like that, right?
Aren't allowed to like it, but it is too good.
Oh. Waters and Gilmore. Together you were too powerful for this world. Oh, what bands does Alex listen to?
God, now I'm trying to think of what's time period appropriate. 'Cause it's gonna be...
Is Black Flag a band that would...
I forget what years everything is. I'm bad at time. It would make sense if Black Flag and the Dead Kennedys and so on were on her mixtape.
I'm not a punk person. I don't know shit about punk, so... This is where... The most I know about punk is that one time Laura Jane Grace put out an album, and I was like, oh yeah. Yep, that's important. And then I was done. All right, let's set ourselves back in the past now for a little while. So again, as we were saying earlier, we got a pretty solid view now on the fact that when Hedy is relating this narrative and to whom, or at least a subset of whom's, right? This is apparently taking place in the direct aftermath of the events related in Volume 2, before, and within the same cell that she had been in before the entire place burns down and becomes destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That is a very narrow time period, relatively. Because that means like the events that we know will happen are not over, right? We know that coming up something is going to happen that burns the Abbey down.
Yeah.
And that of the people she's talking to, it's likely to be someone who's already there. Again, that's a lot of people now, but I don't think most of the laborers that Crispin brought along are going to go out of their way to go to the hagioscope, right? And I think even Hedwig mentioned that, like, observed that most of them don't even seem to be Christian to her, which might be 1400s racism, but also. The point being, I think we have a very narrow and small selection of people who might be visiting Hedwig in the Misericorde. And that is the nuns who are left there. And not James. James is dead. Not the soup. The soup is dead. I could believe it was Flora, Violet, or Bridget. Maybe they got away and are hiding out somewhere near. It's not a close circle again. It could be that Flora's sneaking back in to try to really hear Hedwig's side of the story after being dissatisfied with, Hedwig not backing her up that one time. But who do you think it is?
My only thought is that it's not Moira, because we know Hedwig remarks that Moira is just about the only person who still visits her. That would be an odd thing to remark if she thought it was Moira that she was talking to at that time.
So that is so important.
She thinks this is a different visitor than Moira.
And Moira visits often enough that she had gotten comfortable with that rhythm. So she would recognize...
Well, to be, we don't know for sure it was often enough to be comfortable or anything, just that other folks didn't visit.
But Moira has announced herself when she has visited.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And presumably, with that close of a distance, Hedwig might be able to be like, okay, even though I'm voice blind, I kind of get that this is you doing.
I still think we are putting a lot into that. We have never heard that Hedwig has an inability to recognize the sound of people's voices.
She has said that.
She has
said that from within her hagioscope. She doesn't recognize who she could be talking to. And at the beginning, she says she doesn't recognize who it is, and it could be anyone. At the beginning of Volume 1.
Mm-hmm. And she doesn't say, I cannot distinguish people's voices. They are different statements.
Okay, that is fair. That is fair. And I don't believe it changes anything.
I believe it very much does, because one of them is one where we cannot know, where when she has heard something, we cannot know who has said it, and the other one isn't. The other one is just a statement that, I don't recognize the voices of anybody that I'd have heard from in my cell.
Either way, I think that means we agree that Moira is down very far down the I was almost said likability list. The likelihood list. Okay.
I think it's likely not Moira. And that's about my only thought. I don't have anything else that clues me in to think it would be some other person in particular. We know a couple of other
details that are important about this person. They bring Hedwig some of the good wine when she asks for it.
Yep.
We do know that is and Hedwig thanks them for that. So they have access to that kind of thing. Again, that could be anyone, but maybe, some people are better at being choosy than others. And we know that they get the keys to let her out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that second one is important. I know Flora dropped at the end there that anyone can get into the soup's office, right?
Yep.
So, mechanically speaking, it could be anyone. But not everyone is inclined, I would think, to sneak in through the superior's window to steal the keys.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine, for example, Marta doing that. That seems...
That'd be a twist, though.
It would be a twist. It's, again, I'm not saying it's not plausible. I'm saying it's the likelihood of Marta, who has trouble walking around on her own, doing that is far less likely than for some of the other nuns.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't think that's controversial to say. Same with, unfortunately, Flora. Flora's got a big clanky boot.
Yeah, you're right. That I had forgotten, so it's almost assuredly not Flora.
It's almost assuredly not Flora circling back, as I might have hoped. It could be Bridget or Violet trying to get some context on what happened around here. Maybe they circled back and are hiding, near the hospitalum or whatever. It would be weird for someone to sneak in with this many people around, but it's also not not every worker's going to recognize every sister walking around, right? And Hedwig's hagioscope is way far out of the way. It's not implausible, but I think we can also say that Bridget and Violet are highly unlikely.
Yeah.
I think Charity might have the same issues trying to sneak into the soup's office that Marta has. She's older. She's got a larger frame. It would not be as easy of a time for her to sneak in and get the keys. Who would want to listen to this? And for what reason? I have an inkling it might be Catherine with a K. Catherine with a K also feels like someone who has been somewhat on the outside of a lot of these events, right? She was on the outside of that inner group surrounding Catherine II until the very end. And seemed like she was up and about getting ready to be expelled from the Abbey before the soup died, very conveniently. And it seems like, given how things turned out with her and Hedy, she, of all people, would have a motive to interrogate Hedwig's story, to be like, did you just throw me under the bus and lie to me?
Yep.
I think of the people right now, I think Catherine is kind of percolating towards the top of my list. How about you? Who do you think Hedwig might be talking to here?
I was, I don't know. I pretty much just had not Moira. And that was as far as
that's
I had
fair.
gotten.
And that's fair. Yeah.
I suppose that there were two folks who notably were attached to Hedwig in this chapter, Angela and Adela. So it could make sense if either of them had come to listen.
Angela would have no problem getting the keys.
Yeah.
Of course. Then she apparently is the acting soup.
But why would she release her?
Why would she release her? And B, why would she need her to tell her all of this?
Yeah.
Angela, of most of the nuns, has already heard a lot of this story before. What would she be expecting to hear that's different? And that's pretty similar with Eustace, I would think. Eustace has already heard a lot of what Hedwig has to say before. It could be Eustace was caught off guard and wants to, because Hedwig was lying to her for a while. But what would Eustace expect? Eustace seems to already be pretty certain what she knows about the state of affairs. What would she expect to learn from talking to Hedwig?
Here's something.
Sure.
Let's set the person aside.
Okay.
Under what circumstances would somebody let Hedwig out?
That is also another good question.
If Hedwig wasn't allowed to be let out, it would be odd for someone to. It would mean she'd immediately have to flee.
Well, here's the thing, is that it's not that she's not allowed to be let out. Clearly, Hedwig was the only one who thought that was a stone-fast rule. The soup didn't have any qualms letting her out from that. And even on a ritualistic level, the bishop was never available to redo the rites to seal her inside.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even like you're breaking scripture by letting her out. As far as they're concerned, she's just a person who's in a room. Again, it sounds, but the rituals and process do mean things to a lot of people.
Even so, she got put back in, right?
By her own... Yeah, she did get put back in, but it's by her own, it seemed to be that she was campaigning for that.
Okay, so she was not confined here.
No, it was not the case. It does not appear to be the case that she was locked up there to keep her... Oh, that is a good distinction. It does not appear...
This is important, right?
Yeah, you're super right. This is important. It does not appear to be the case that she was locked up because they thought she was a criminal. And, I mean, obviously she killed James and copped to it, right? She has no problem admitting that and relating the story.
Mm-hmm.
And, they caught her standing there naked with the sword. She does that a whole lot. Hedy. But as far as the other nuns are concerned, Hedy was just proven right and just slayed the monster. It was somebody in a monster suit, but she just did slay someone matching the description of the monster she's gone around talking about for the last few weeks.
Yep.
So, from their perspective, she just got proven right.
Why then would everyone isolate her?
Because it's fucking awkward as hell. She just murdered someone. That's fucking... That's a hard thing to...
If someone's stalking around your home at night with a weapon, menacing folks and so on, and someone fights back against them and kills them, your reaction would be to isolate that person entirely?
That's a good point. I think a lot of it also comes down to Hedwig's disposition, in that she seemed to be, gunning to get herself isolated again, and it could be a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, maybe we shouldn't push that for now, right? And aside from Moira doing checkups to make sure she's getting her food and stuff, maybe they feel like we should just leave her be for a bit. Clearly, one person thought, it's worth hearing her story. But it is strange. You're right. It is strange that everyone at large, folks don't... Well, then again, that's par for the course, isn't it? Folks weren't really making a point of coming to see her in the first place. She relates occasional times where people would come to her to settle debates of scripture, but those were few and far between.
But now they know her.
Yeah, they do know her now. But also, do they know her now? Now it's kind of out in the open that the only reason she was let out was to investigate Catherine II's death. From a very reasonable perspective, she's been lying to them for the entirety of the time they've known her. And maybe they feel betrayed by that. Maybe someone would feel put off or hurt by being under suspicion.
Then why didn't they do that when she was out?
Because
why did they publicly forgive her and then go on and have some normal times before shit hit the fan?
Yeah, you're right. There was the big whole... because they did kind of get together and be like, no, we've kind of all known this for a while. So one kind of did quickly follow the other.
So another thing to think of then.
Yeah.
If Hedwig is here of her own choice and is isolated not because someone is isolating her, but because she is pushing people away, then why would you let her out? What would that mean?
Again, back to the same question. Why would you let her out? That, I really don't have a good answer for this. And that seems weird, right? Maybe some of it, one version of events might be something like, okay, you need to stop pouting and being on your own. Come on, get out of here. You've done enough of this self-flagellation nonsense,
But then why wait until why make her retell the whole story first?
Maybe it seems like she wants penance. And maybe by doing this and going through the whole thing, and they can confidently say, okay, you don't have to sit here trying to repent for the rest of your life, okay? Maybe it's as simple as that. I don't, to be clear, I don't think that that's the real reason, but I think there could be a version where it's just stop wallowing and come live your life.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to, again, punish yourself for this. Because Hedwig, admittedly, at the end does feel that she failed.
Mm-hmm.
She said, I didn't figure it out. I failed to do what I came here to do, and now people are dead because of me. There is a lot of self-blame on her end towards the end of the novel. Another reason someone might let her out that's not related to stop wallowing. Maybe they need her to testify. I don't know, maybe she's been reporting this to someone who is investigating some of the goings on here, and they're like, great, cool, I got what I needed from you, I'm going to need you to come with me now. That, again, feels weird, but because it also then involves the presence of another character from outside, but given the mechanics of what we know, it's technically plausible. Could be that they need Hedwig's help. It could be whoever she just told that story to was able to figure out the shape of the actually dangerous conspiracy and needs someone who will believe them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That one feels the most likely to me. In telling that story, whoever she told it to was able to put something together and needs Hedwig as someone who, be able to understand what they put together. Although why you take her out of your... Again, taking her out of her cell is a very public thing, right? Anyone could go there and see it. Like Moira, for example, could go up and would...
Plus, she has to live somewhere. It's not going to be a secret.
Which, I wonder if she's being let out towards the... She is let out at the end of what, for all intents and purposes, feels like another day relating this story, right? Given how many breaks she has taken in the course of telling it, I don't think the person who came up to her could have known before that day that this was the final time they would talk to her. I was about to say, maybe events are kind of reaching a climax and they're like, quick, we need you to come out here right now. Shit is going down around the Abbey right this fucking instant and we need you. That would be a strange thing if they just sat there listening to her talk for 6 hours.
And saying nothing.
Right. Is there a chair outside the hagioscope? Or do people have to stand?
Good question. We didn't hear about one, but
No, we didn't hear.
Chairs are movable.
Chairs are movable. They would make no... Again, that's just for someone like Marta or Charity, who we've already kind of suggested probably aren't the person here. I don't see Marta standing around for 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't know. Do you have any other ideas for what might have led to her being...
Not really. Mostly that it would... There's a lot of circumstances it seems like it wouldn't be. Like, it seems...
That's still important, so let's hear.
Yeah. Like, it seems like it wouldn't be the case that if she were indeed confined on someone else's will, namely the new superior...
Angela, yeah.
That it'd be weird if someone else let her out without the superior's permission. Because it's not a secret. She has to live somewhere. You can look and see that she's not there.
Yep.
Like,
so not...
You wouldn't let her out of the cell just to banish her into the wilderness. Like, there's it's unlikely to be that scenario.
Yeah, maybe they're setting up like an escape thing for her or something, but she doesn't sound like someone who wants to leave. But yeah, it would be in the case that it is someone letting her out against Angela's wishes. That seems very risky and would come with its own set of problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And it also, I guess, leading off of that, it doesn't seem like she is under suspicion and waiting to being taken back to the diocese to be tried. She's not being held like James was in the hospitalum, right? So it doesn't seem like she is being held in anticipation of her facing retribution for any supposed crimes.
Yep.
That's important. That's not nothing. That's not nothing. I feel good about those. Here's an important question about the narrative. What the fuck is Volume 3 going to be like?
It is impossible for me to know the answer to this question.
Good thing we're in the speculation corner. What is Volume 3 going to be like?
I don't know.
Parenthesis, speculation. Okay. Well, we know Hedwig gets let out at the end of Volume 2, so maybe Volume 3 is then a shift into a first-person accounting of events from Hedwig's perspective. Right? That seems pretty reasonable.
Maybe they put somebody else in the cell and we listen to that person talk.
Put me in the cell. Maybe Volume 3 is more of Alex in the present day talking from a jail cell. Either way, I mean, like, I don't think it can be Hedy. It's not. Something has to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
I imagine we're also going to see a lot more of the present day narrative, since that appears to be where things will resolve. And I can't imagine we're going to get a good resolution on the present narrative without a little bit more time spent there. I think Volume 3 is going to change dramatically. It's going to be a radio play. I saw ZC put out some ads looking to hire Foley artists. 100% true. Don't fact check me.
Volume 3 is going to be a kart racer.
Nun drifter. That's Nun. Volume 3 is actually a match 3 game. You have to do well enough to unlock the CGs, and if you do super well, you unlock a short 3-minute animated short featuring the nuns taking off their tights.
Oh, Miru tights.
There's a fucking deep... That's not a deep cut, but god damn that game. God. It's not worth it, even for the funny bit of it. It's not worth it. Volume 3 will be a print novel in much the style of House of Leaves. It'll be a collection of people reflecting on the notes and stuff taken about the making of Misericorde Volume 2. Volume 3 will be a first-person shooter Doom-like.
No. That's None Left Alive.
Yeah, Volume 3 is just None Left Alive. Okay, actually a real thing this time. I think Volume 3 might switch to Catherine's perspective.
Okay.
Yep. I've been gunning hard on ringing the bell hard that she is indeed going to be the main character. And I think part of this is going to come down to making her more central in Volume 3. And I think maybe we're going to get a first-person narrative from her perspective, letting Hedy out, and then going through the ensuing events. There's your big swing. I was right last time I took a big swing, is all I want to say. You can look it up in the last discussion episode. I was like, yeah, Catherine and Angela feels like that might have been a thing. And you were like, no, that's just the Yuri glasses. And I'm like,
I was
right. And I know ZC listened to our playthrough of Volume 1. So. Listen, ZC, I'll slip you a cool tenner if you make some of these.
Now that's not sportsmanlike.
A nice Christian. No, not enough. Maybe my friend Andrew Jackson can change your mind. Is it not sporting, or is it just taking advantage of the things that you have?
Solving mysteries with the...
Oh, you just spoiled it.
Oh, we
I will edit that out. That's such a big spoiler. That's such... For the longest time, we thought it was... All right.
Now we gotta bleep that out, too.
No, I'm cutting out this whole section. This whole section will be cut out.
No, bleep it.
No!
Bleep it.
No!
Bleep it.
You can't make me do that. That's so much work. What else we got? Don't worry about the cut that you just heard there. There's nothing important, I'm sure. Let's talk about James for a bit.
Yeah.
So James, at the very end there, is revealed to be the one in the beast suit, right? And he has this conversation, or tries to have a conversation with Hedy. Hedy doesn't understand. I was 100% prepared to go all cryptography on this, but it turns out not to be necessary. Someone in the Steam forums just apparently the actual text is in the game files that he's saying. There isn't much to be learned from it. You can look it up if you want to. The important details, I think, are he is locked in the suit, and he's pleading to Hedy, being like, I don't want to sin anymore. Please let me out. So, I think the important details to take away from that are this is not being done. It is not the case that James is doing this all of his own volition.
Yeah.
There is indeed another person who is involved and who sets him up for this, right? He describes again the important detail. He describes being locked in the suit, which is why he needs to ask Hedy to cut him out at the very end there. So once he's in that, he has. It's like medieval armor, right? You need someone else to help you get in and out of it. So.
It's like medieval armor because it is.
Right. Okay, sorry, dumb comparison. Point being, as he said, he is working on someone else's behalf, this mysterious he.
Satan, the prince.
Yep. Satan, the prince, who we have, since Volume 1, maintained as Moira.
Yep.
Right? And weirdly enough, I think that theory survived through Volume 2.
Yeah, I think we did good thinking.
Yeah, and I think even back to our thoughts towards Volume 1 about being like this handsome gentleman would have to be presenting a different, as a different gender in order to be hiding at the Abbey where they might be naked around anyone else, right? We've already, since Volume 1, presupposed that someone might be presenting as masculine. And that gives us a good enough reason to suspect that whoever this mysterious prince is could be one of the nuns. And well, here's the thing: is that we know only 2 people regularly visit James.
Yep.
I don't know that, and those are Catherine with a K and Moira.
Yep.
I don't think we know enough for certain to say no one else could have visited him on the regular. But it would be I think that would be a bit of a stretch and maybe a bit more, that's a bit more supposing that we don't necessarily need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to dismiss that that's a theory, that that's a plausibility, but it feels like that's a couple of extra steps. Out of the 2, Moira and Catherine with a K, it seems more likely that it would indeed be Moira. I don't know. It seems like we might and this is also a bit awkward because now I also feel like, wait, have we just been falling for the bait, hook, line, and sinker? You know what I mean? And because, like, let it not go unsaid, Catherine with a K murdered a dude. Fully admitted to it.
Yep.
Right?
Hashtag girl boss.
Hashtag Jesus Christ. Heaven forbid women do anything.
Moira is gaslight. Eustace is gatekeep. And Catherine is girl boss.
Okay. Never mind. We got the whole thing down. Got the whole thing down by numbers.
It is. It does feel like it would be way out of line for Catherine to be the one involved in letting James out, doing this whole little play at being a monster, because, like, there's not a clear connection to the original group of folks in on the conspiracy. There's not an obvious motive. Catherine is also the one who is immediately going to be the first to be suspected of anything and knows that.
Yep, and which may be why Moira feels a little bit more confident in this.
Yeah, it would feel like, wow, there's just so much that would make it a terrible idea for Catherine to be the person to do this, that the one other person would have a way easier time getting away with it.
And I think it's important to note this, that Catherine with a K, we know why she kills. She explains to Hedwig her motives for killing her husband and that she would have done it again.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't line up with what James appears to be doing at that person's behest.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, Moira, if that is your real name.
So, what do we think if we're saying Moira's the one orchestrating this? Why do we think that is?
That's the hard part, ain't it? It involves a lot of leaping, but it could connect some dots. If we I think, and I want to say this up front because, like, just in spite of what the end of the game says, I don't think that the War of the Roses is itself wholly unrelated to what's going on here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I still think that, despite the Christopher Columbus of it all, that is important. I think that Moira might be central. It might be, I think Moira, the handsome gentleman who I'm claiming is the handsome gentleman from the very first scene of the game, is indeed involved with a plot to kill the King of England. She gets involved she comes to Linbarrow to lie low, and suddenly is in the inner circle of this one person she knows, Catherine II, who has dreamed up a plan to kill the Antichrist. Now, Moira, I think, here sees an opportunity. I don't even have to do shit if I could just convince my friend that the Antichrist they're thinking of is the King of England. Obviously, things go south. Catherine with the C winds up dying. But in the aftermath of that, Moira needs a way to keep people away from figuring out exactly what happened there. And thus the whole charade with James to create this monster going around and create this air of superstition that will hopefully foil people looking into those circumstances, as we know people quickly pegged Hedwig to be doing. It's not without flaw, but that's my first kind of tenuous web of tying these things together.
First question then, isn't Moira not a recent arrival?
You're super right. Yeah, that was right. Yeah, you are super right about that.
The second would be, why, if you go to a place to lay low, would you then, why would you then try to provoke a madwoman into a politically motivated murder involved in the thing you're trying to get away and lay low from?
Again, a great point. Again, maybe Catherine with the C was a useful idiot. Someone who happened to be motivated to do the right thing, and if she could just kind of fire her in the right direction, might take care of her problem while not putting any shade on the larger conspiracy.
And a third would be, a random nun in a remote rural area seems like not that useful for a murder plot, right? Like, how would you aim her at the King of England and get something done?
So here's the thing. I don't know, but it was apparently convincing enough for 4 of the nuns there to take her seriously for a long time.
Do we know for sure that it was the King of England, though?
No.
So
all we know is that she saw visions of the Antichrist. Mm-hmm. What I am saying is that Moira would have kind of gently nudged Catherine to the conclusion that that's who the Antichrist was.
Right, but how would that be effective as a murder plot? That seems like it'd be a really ineffective way to do it.
It does, but again, apparently 4 of the nuns found it convincing enough. Maybe that's just Catherine's kind of personal magnetism and her like sheer force of personality, but...
No, but looping back, we don't know that it was the King of England, right? We don't know that 4 nuns thought that Catherine had a convincing plot to kill the King of England. That might be the case, but...
They thought she had a convincing plot to kill someone. And if the Antichrist isn't literally among... Is the Antichrist literally someone among the nuns?
That would make it way easier. Or someone in town, or... Someone...
Right, because I think maybe as far away as Linbarrow itself, where we know the nuns will go to
or
deliver.
Even just that it is a vision that the Antichrist will arrive at such and such a point.
Arrive at such and such... Okay. No. So, again, I'm not claiming that theory was perfect or unassailable, but that was kind of my first attempt to kind of web things together, eh?
Mm-hmm.
But you bring up some very good points. So on that note... Oh, you were about to say something, actually.
Yeah. I'd like to advance the Moira is a true believer theory.
Moira is a true believer theory. All right, go
Everybody else, it seems, was like, no. Catherine was getting mad at the end. Was going mad at the end. This wasn't, like, we can't really go kill someone. Like, this isn't a thing we should actually be doing. We went along with this for far too long, and no. We shouldn't be doing this. Moira doesn't do the same things as the others necessarily. Eustace talks about how they all have the same story that they tell that doesn't involve smoke and so on for the morning of the murder, but doesn't Moira not tell that version?
Smoke. Definitely smoke.
But right, so but doesn't Moira not tell that version?
I don't recall.
Okay, then don't quote me on that. But then, like... What if one of the folks in that inner circle actually believed in Catherine's stuff and was like, oh shit, Catherine's dead. I gotta finish carrying this out.
Is Moira susceptible to conspiracy theory?
Is there a conspiracy theory to be susceptible to?
Well, I mean, like, is she susceptible to being like, oh, I just got lit in on something, this is super important, I gotta see this through. She kind of because she would kind of get dragged along in that. I like your suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
I really like your suggestion. So that in this case, unlike the other nuns in that inner circle, Moira, so unlike Eustace and unlike Margaret, Moira is all in.
Yep.
Right? Huh. Okay. So Moira is all in the like, oh, my friend believes the Antichrist is coming. Or has a plan to kill the Antichrist. And they are now dead. I need to carry this out.
Yep.
Which one side effect of this is that Moira probably isn't the person that killed Catherine. If she's a true believer,
I think
it would make it very. It wouldn't be like. It would not be physically impossible, but it would be very strange if she was the one to have killed Catherine with the C.
Yep. I think another strength of this is it avoids a lot of the things with like, oh, if she is trying to lay low and not be involved in things, it sure seems like having a big supernatural mystery happen and then murdering the person who runs the place and making the bishop run off and so on would be the absolute worst way to do that. But if her motive is orthogonal to not getting caught,
right, and
it's not covering something up, it's not getting away with something, it's bringing some series of events that she believes must happen to happen.
So you just made another leap there. It's not just preparing. So the first leap was killing the Antichrist, who she's had a vision is coming. That was the first one. And the second was coming after a series of events that we need to make sure are carried out.
That's not quite what I meant to get across, but just that her motive is to accomplish an act of some sort. It is, and that is orthogonal to get away with thing or cover up crime.
Got it.
The things that end up happening here that would seem to be associated with whoever the culprit is would be really bad if your goal was cover up Catherine's murder, get away with it.
Yeah, because it draws so much attention in that direction.
But if your goal is totally orthogonal to that, then things click together a little bit easier.
And we have had at least one instance of one of the nuns' visions being strangely directly related to something that then happens. So we have had that narrative seed planted of real life trying to follow in the wake of visions, right? Back in Volume 1 where Darcy talks about like the goats burning.
No, that one's fun because if we are figuring that the demonic figure there is James already at that point.
Remind me, I got a thing on that. Yep.
Okay. Then is it just coincidence that it all lines up? Or, I don't know, we see people lurking around. It could well be that Moira is standing just over the next hedgerow or whatever, hears this and is like, I can work with this.
Right. Here's one other important question I think we need to address. Is the monster that Hedwig sees always James?
I actually think there's two important questions to address with this before we move on, but let's do this one first.
Okay. Well,
so, is it always James? Not always, because one time it's Eustace.
One time it is Eustace. But, again, accepting the one time that Eustace is caught red-handed and cops to it.
I think that all of the times when we see it as an actual monster.
A monster with the goat head and stuff.
Yeah.
But the one where it's kind of nebulous and fog-oriented.
Yep, or the times there's just shadowy figures in the distance. That could be anyone.
Okay, that is a pretty good heuristic. Heuristic? Is that the word for it?
That is a great word. I love that word.
Okay, I am a fan of that because it does seem like Hedwig indeed does see this goat-headed figure pretty clearly several times, and we know that goat-headed armor exists. However, not every instance of her seeing a monster or the monster that she attributes to being the same person looks like that, right? Mm-hmm. There's the nebulous fog monster that chases her and Flora. It could be some of this is also Hedwig under a lot of stress having these things invented in her mind.
Is it a nebulous fog monster that chases her and Flora? Doesn't she describe this particular monster?
She describes seeing it at the base of the stairs. I don't know that it was the same one that chased them.
Two monsters, maybe more.
Well, that's the thing is that like spatially it doesn't make sense if it's the same one. right? Because it was behind them, the door closed, and he would have had to really fucking hustle, get around out to the other side. You know what I mean? I think that scene alone is proof positive that either there are two monsters, or it's proof positive that not every instance of Hedwig seeing a monster is James.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it also suggests that maybe indeed there are times where Hedwig does straight up imagine some things based on her own stress. Or I shouldn't say straight up imagine, but maybe under the influence of these events sees what she thinks she, sees. It's weird to say sees what she wants to see. Sees what she expects to see, which is a monster. But yeah, I think we're both in agreement that it cannot be the case that every time that Hedy encounters a monster, including the Eustace bit, that it can't be James every time. That the existence of a duder with a goat suit does not explain every single instance of a monster in her testimony.
It is convenient though, because it gets us it lets there be an extra person around when all the nuns are accounted for. So what we can't rule out now is anything that would have happened when we already know where all the nuns are, given that we now know there's an unknown person X who can be on the loose doing things.
And also we at least have one data point of when Catherine has gone to see him at the hospitalum.
Mm-hmm.
So there is at least one data point where we know James had to have been present. And I don't know that we're going to get very far by trying to pinpoint exactly what days he would have been available, but based on like Moira, Catherine, like, that's probably not a non-starter, but...
So...
what is your second big thing that we need to bring up about this?
What the heck is the purpose of the monster? What is the point?
So honestly, it was something you said that made me more convinced about it. Maybe indeed Moira feels like she needs to bring about certain circumstances from Catherine's visions in order to make the Antichrist appear as foretold, right? And we have been primed by the narrative to see at least one instance of reality following in the wake of a vision. Whether or not someone intentionally made it happen that way is a different question, but it could be that maybe part of those visions of the Antichrist involved this goat-headed figure who appeared before them and walked amongst the abbey. And in order to, make that part come true, she's like, well, time to make a goat head. like that. Weirdly enough, her being a true believer would kind of more easily explain that, wouldn't it?
But why the specific things? Going around threatening Hedwig, seemingly, in the early, or at least that's how it's interpreted in the early appearances.
Yeah.
Then chasing her around the library, but not killing her, but definitely like risking it, swinging a sword around. But it doesn't seem like it feels like you'd be able to get her if you were trying.
So here's part
hard.
of the thing that I think is important about this. James's heart isn't really in it.
Yep.
Right? Especially at the end there, it feels like he really like there is some motivating force behind, like, oh, he lets me out and lets me do things, But also at the very end, it's very clear that he's like, it does weigh on him, and he isn't necessarily a wholly willing participant.
So the goal. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So on this theory, the goal is indeed to kill Hedwig, and he just doesn't have the heart to fully carry it out.
That is a possibility.
But he does for Soup, at least.
Yeah, he definitely killed the Soup. I think it's important that, at least the first time Hedwig encounters this monster is outside in the hallway, right? Lighting the sword on fire, beheading the goat and all that. I don't know that we know that one was James specifically, but if it is, that was just to intimidate.
Yeah.
This could be a way. And we know that the nuns from very early on have suspected Hedwig's true intentions by being let out of the cell, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be that was a very early play to attack her credibility. If she's going around talking about monsters and magic and nonsense, even if she stumbles upon something that happens to be real, people won't take her seriously. Even Angela's kind of fed up with the playing pretend of it all, right?
I don't think it'd be a very good plot. Everybody tells ghost stories. People immediately take it to be one.
Everyone tells ghost stories. So I think there's a difference between everyone tells ghost stories and everyone literally thinks ghosts exist. Or everyone literally thinks supernatural beings exist in a physical way that can wield a sword and attack you. I think it's perfectly cogent to say people believe, ghost stories. Because ghost stories always have this strange level of, they're lightly supernatural, right? As in oh, this thing just happened to happen, or I saw that, and it's oh, that was strange. Hedwig's is very real and concrete in a lot of way that ghost stories aren't. As in, I saw this large being here, it threatened me. I saw this large being here, it chased me. I saw the large being here, it attacked Flora and got her. There is, I think, a material difference between believing in that and believing in just a run-of-the-mill ghost story.
But regardless, it doesn't seem like it'd be very effective as a way to attack someone's credibility, right? It would seem like someone who'd live here would indeed know that what will happen is indeed what did happen, which is that everyone thought Hedwig was telling a ghost story. And it didn't successfully make people
But it also
doubt
kept
her credibility.
happening. What do you mean it didn't make people doubt her credibility? Eustace clearly says multiple times, I don't believe you, Hedwig. Whatever you're saying about this beast nonsense is clearly in your head. When clearly not all of it was.
Fair enough.
That successfully dinged her credibility, and also with Angela, right? You can I'm willing to concede that maybe that wasn't the original intention, but it did definitely ding her credibility. Remember all that stuff she was telling to the soup, and Richard was like, for God's sake, take her seriously, woman. Right? You let her out to do this, and you're just dismissing everything she says.
But it again, soup is why are you telling me tall tales, right? Not you've gone mad, right? It seems interesting that people are expected to tell stories around here about odd things.
Okay.
And all I'm saying is it seems like a weird choice to do that as a way to attack someone's credibility when
yeah. Absolutely, it seems weird. I guess the thing about it is that we know it does happen. And that...
Right, but we don't know the motive. And so...
Right.
If the motive is this, why would the action be that, given what we know is likely to happen and does happen, is all I'm saying. It seemed like if your goal was to attack someone's credibility, probably you'd find better ways to do it that are more effective. And...
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on this.
What throws me then, though, is it did seem like it started with threats, but escalated, or trying to intimidate.
Yep.
But escalated to what sure seemed like an attempt to straight up kill her off. So is it just Moira was increasingly frustrated she kept going and needed her killed? But if so, aren't there any number of other ways that you could kill off Hedwig that doesn't involve a demon with a flaming sword running around inside the castle causing havoc?
Yeah, exactly.
It would not be hard to kill off Hedwig in some other way.
So so then we're back to so what is the purpose of doing it in this manner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a spectacle.
Again, I think the most convincing version of this was that indeed Moira is a true believer, and this spectacle is part of what is required by Catherine's visions. I also think part of it, at the very end, there was an attempt to frame Catherine with a K.
How do you mean?
That very last night, when Hedy finally kills James, who was the only other person that got killed?
The superior.
Superior. The one person who everyone knew at that day Catherine had a motive to not like.
The superior and Hedwig, who was known to be reporting to the superior, killed them both off. It seems like Catherine had a grudge against the person who was about to punish her and the person who gave the information that led to the punishment. Everything wraps up neatly.
Yep.
But wait. But that makes so much sense, except for the whole massive spectacle with a fucking demon clanking around.
Okay.
Why not just hide out in Soup's room and stab her in the back?
At that point, they've already got the big monster suit, right? It'd be a shame to not use it. I'm saying we need to get past it doesn't make sense to do this by virtue of a big monster suit. We know they are using the big monster suit.
No, I don't think we need to get past it, because they could at any time not put it on and happen to just carry out a murder normally. Indeed, it would make it probably easier to murder Soup.
So that means that the reason they're using the murder suit must be something that supersedes the base doing of the action, right?
Here we go.
Okay.
If the bishop's not actually in on it and is being intimidated, it works a lot better if there's someone who's like, yep, I'm Satan. I came here and I'm demanding you do these things at the cost of your life. Then if it's just James, the guy who was hiding out the guy who was imprisoned and who we thought fled actually didn't. Or Moira, the nun who lives not that far down the hall from here, is holding a sword to someone's neck. Those would probably not be as effective for intimidating the bishop into compliance.
We know that the bishop is indeed, to a degree, a true believer.
Do we?
Yeah, he talks very openly about his experience with magic and Satan.
Oh, sorry, a believer in magic. I thought you meant...
sorry. Yeah, sorry. You're right. I use. We've been using that term to mean one thing, and I used it to mean a different thing. Right? No, you're absolutely right. He believes that Satan literally can walk on the earth, and he has seen what he believes to be the effect of that.
Yep.
If someone claiming to be Satan approached him, he would likely believe it if it was convincing enough.
Yep.
So
that'd be one reason.
So maybe because we've been saying that it really does seem like Richard's been carrying water for this whole thing the whole time. Maybe that's part of why it was, because he has been intimidated into being part of that conspiracy. That kind of fits neatly here. I like that. Ugh. Anything else we want to get off on our chest about James and that conspiracy?
Here's one that I don't think we've ever talked about, but that I think is at least worth stating aloud.
Mm-hmm.
How does he get in and out?
Of the hospital?
Yeah. There's a couple ways.
It's
interesting to think about it.
Yeah, I think it behooves us to at least narrate them just to get it clear. Taking the keys from the soup is obviously not impossible.
Yep.
But I think that also is unnecessarily complicated. As we pointed out, you could just drop a ladder in.
Yeah, there's just a big hole in the ceiling.
There's a big hole. And obviously you can't get out that way, but like you just drop a ladder in, right? And that seems to be the easy. You wouldn't even have to hide it that far. No one's going to walk into the woods around this place that deeply.
Heck, no one's going to climb up on top. The rope ladder might just be up there.
Do we know where it lets out? Is it on the roof or is it...
Oh, fair enough. It may be. I don't recall.
I thought it kind of let out around ground level, but either way, it's not...
It's even easier if it's ground level.
Yeah, it's not really that difficult to get James out.
Yeah.
And it's not super hard to... The worst case scenario, you got a ladder, you toss it 10 yards into the woods, no one's going to go look there and find it.
Yep.
So, it's important to address, you're absolutely right, but I don't think it's that hard to believe that James can just get out whenever someone outside of the hospital wants him to. At most, that requires them having a ladder, which... I don't have a problem believing. I don't know. Is there a reason I shouldn't believe they have ladders? What, you telling me they just can't go down to the local Home Depot and...
Ladders hadn't been invented yet. No one climbed to a high altitude until 1587.
Thinking about James in that one class from Community. Ladders!
I do not remember this.
You don't remember that bit?
No.
It's one of the... I'm going to spoil the bit now by explaining it. One of these throwaway gags in Community is just the notion of a class where everyone is sitting there eagerly waiting for the professor to show up. He shows up, climbs a ladder in front of the chalkboard and underlines ladders, and the class just erupts in applause. One of the best courses you could take at community college. Community is good shit. Anyway, that was not what I did not mean to spend that much time explaining that bit, actually. So, I guess we should be clear about this then. Do we think... So then, are we supposing that Moira is in this inner conspiracy, this lowest level Matryoshka conspiracy on her own? And, pulling in James and threatening Richard, but she alone is the ringleader and the one who wants things to happen this way. She is the sole motivating force here.
I think so.
Okay. I agree with you, but I think it's important to say that.
Yeah.
And it's a good feint with that with there actually being an inner circle to find, right?
Yep.
The inner circle of Margaret, Moira, Eustace, and Catherine. But all right. So got a couple more general kind of vibey questions I think we should address.
All right.
What did you think about the change in tone from volumes 1 to 2? I do know that there were some people that were turned off by that. And I just want to say I can understand that, right? Volume 1 does kind of come in with a certain... It does kind of lead you to a certain level of expectation for what the tone of the series is going to be like. And Volume 2 very much ramped that up in a way that one could reasonably say was not to be expected.
I do find it very funny that I saw positive reviews for chapter 1 on Catholic game review websites and then nothing for chapter 2 for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
It did not seem surprising to me at all, and I'm surprised other folks found it surprising.
I mean, I don't want to be disingenuous. I'll be I could, if I, say I was one of the people on those Catholic game review sites. There's nothing in Volume 1 to suggest that that the presence, that will go beyond anything but acknowledging that it's there, right? And I think even someone who is devoutly Catholic can still find enjoyment in a game under those settings where that's still a part of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But Volume 1 also didn't center the fact that Hedwig has a nudist streak going on. And again, I'm not making a judgment on it. I happen to think it was fun and good that we got to put all those goat heads in the video. But
plus, you got to lure in the normies.
I'm just saying, I can see how someone might feel that way, and I was curious of what your thoughts were.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, I didn't expect it to be quite that raunchy.
Yeah,
but yeah, I expected it to definitely get a little bit more raunchy, because it was clear from the overtones of Volume 1 that the sexuality of the nuns was going to be an important part of it going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it certainly caught me off guard a little bit just how many goat heads we had to put in there. And I don't know, I won't judge anyone who was no, that wasn't for me. That's fair. But I do think it also served a purpose, and I think it it was clearly the game that ZC was angling to make from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really fault him on that.
I'll also say I think it serves an absolute purpose, because you can't have the narrative of the tormented person compelled to act in a way that feels true to themselves and is what they're always driven to do, and then also believing it to be utterly wrong without them indeed doing those things.
Right. If that wasn't present, it would feel kind of like a false dichotomy almost.
I'll also go so far to say St. Augustine's Confessions wouldn't be as compelling if it weren't for the bits about oh, I was an awful sinner before.
Let me describe to you how I was sinning.
Exactly. So, like, I think it's not even... This is a little disingenuous, but I think it's not even that far beyond the pale.
And that's fair. Like, it's definitely the case. Like, lots of illuminations from medieval times we'll see feature people that are just, dick out. But I think one could reasonably argue that the tone of the sexuality in Volume 2 was not consistent with that kind of medieval, not frivolity, but kind of medieval era attitudes towards that thing. I don't know. I just thought it was worth mentioning because it is something that turned some people off of the game, which is unfortunate. I think this is fun, and I'm looking forward to it. Weirdly, I think Volume 3 is going to feature less of it.
Maybe so, yeah.
It feels like that's part of the illustrating effect of Hedwig buying into the promise of Linbarrow, right? And now she's let herself be there, and she was unhappy with what it led her to.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's going to result in the end of her clawing her way back out.
I'd also just like to push back on medieval attitudes about sex here, because I think what most people have in mind hasn't got anything in particular to do with the medieval era. What medieval attitudes are those? Where'd you learn about them?
That's true. I am thinking mostly about silly medieval guys and illuminations. Silly illustrations that involve dongs and nipples doing strange things.
See, that's good. You should be. Because indeed, people had all kinds of attitudes about sexuality in the Middle Ages. You were talking about people seeing this as like, this increased sexual tone is inconsistent and so on. And like, yeah, but is it? There's all kinds of raunchy-ass songs from back then, and illuminations and tales. Like, a lot of what people are getting, they're thinking of like, specifically like Victorian-era retellings of Arthurian legends and so on.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's how it actually was. Everyone just did chaste, courtly love, and that's what everyone felt. And
like
that's not true.
It's like the medieval equivalent of a Marvel movie. Where it's everyone is unbearably hot and sexless at the same time.
Like, you gotta realize, people were fucking. People have always been fucking. We made it to the point where we're alive now, which meant that generations of an unbroken chain of hundreds and hundreds of human beings all had to fuck a lot to make the human beings that would make the human beings that would later have us end up existing.
Some of them had pretty poor aim, though, if they ended.
Indeed. So, like, that as well. Like, I don't think it's out of place for there to be a raunchy story or two.
Yeah. No, but I completely agree with you. I just also didn't want to, like, out of hand dismiss people who felt that way. Yeah.
I want people to challenge their preconceptions.
I did appreciate the streamer mode, even though we didn't use it. ZC, I know you're listening. Thanks again. Like and subscribe. Consider that a challenge for Volume 3. Make a CG I cannot go ahead and have it remain legible for YouTube, and that force us to use the streamer mode. The gauntlet is thrown. It is worth noting that Volume 3 is not the next game ZC is working on. I don't know if you've seen this yourself or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some folks were talking about it, but looks like there's going to be like ZC's working like a jazz era kind of noirish type thing.
Jazz era?
Based on the vibes.
I thought it was 1950s.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It's a little bit out. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. A lot of that is just kind of like one big contemporaneous mush in my head. So maybe we don't take what I have to say for granted there. Here's another question for you. What will we need to find out in order for this ending to be, in order for us to feel satisfied with the end of this series?
For it to be good.
Is that... Okay, but that's also a bit of a cop-out. I'm asking specifically some incendiary stuff now.
How do you mean?
So Volume 3 comes out, right? And given everything we've been talking about through our discussions of Volume 1 and 2, What open questions will need to be answered for you to feel like we had a satisfying conclusion? For example, what if we get through the end of Volume 3 and it's never clarified how Catherine died?
That could be fine if it turned out it doesn't matter for some other reason.
Okay.
I think that what we need is a satisfying conclusion to the dramatic arcs that have been opened, and what form that takes, that depends a lot on the events of what happens in the next chapter.
Okay.
But if, say, none of the events that occurred were mentioned again, that wouldn't be good, but that also isn't going to happen.
Volume 3 actually takes place a good 3,000 years in the future.
Okay, but that
it's a
could
mexploitation
slap.
Story.
That No, you're selling me on this. This could work.
Hedwig's 50th generation descendant flies the mecha, the bad habit. No, I'm bringing myself around on this, actually. Hold on. Oh.
It's another one I don't quite know how to answer, but we got a number of dramatic arcs about that things are going on at the Abbey, that Hedwig, our viewpoint character, has gone through all these things, gotten locked up, and then is getting let out again. Mm-hmm. And, like,
That's
something's
fair.
got to put a bow on those things in some way or other, but as for what form that is, I won't know until I know.
That's okay. That's fair. That's fair. I was trying to pin you down with a hot take, and you were like nimbly dodging out of the way there. So good on you.
I also my brain does not work that way very much.
Really?
Stories are.
And this is me genuinely curious. Talk to me.
It's mystifying to me that I would know what a good ending for the story looks like. I didn't write it, and the story hasn't ended yet.
Okay.
So how would I know?
I would counter that stories generally have things stories don't exist in a vacuum. Stories exist in times and places where there are expectations and set by both the author and readers for how stories will generally go. It's possible to subvert and play with those expectations, but those expectations are nonetheless there. And here, I'll point one out. I think, for example, it would be dissatisfying if we ended Volume 3 without some idea of what connected modern-day Eustace to past Eustace.
Okay, yeah. I'd
Right.
buy that.
You know what I mean? Like, there's clearly been this parallel set up here, and for it to just be hand-waved or meaning nothing, that would feel narratively unsatisfying. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe it's ambiguous or left open to interpretation, but like something that at least kind of acknowledges the fact that this has been left in your court there, and be like, okay. That's the kind of thing I was getting at.
This is why we need you around. We need the story understander.
It is really funny how I approach these things mostly from vibes in that era, in that kind of way.
You think about things in a different way, in a way that a person who writes stories and thinks of stories a bunch naturally would, and someone like me that doesn't have that inclination would find difficult or confusing.
That's interesting to me, actually, because I thought that, like, again, genuinely, like, we've done this on this channel for over half a decade now. I genuinely thought you would have had some stronger opinions on what you find, more satisfying and how these stories would come to an end.
I'm not the story understander.
And to be clear again, that's not a judgment here. I hope that's clear. Oh, man.
Do you think they'll sword fight by the end again?
That's a great question. I feel like there's got to be at least one more big gay sword fight. I feel like we haven't talked a lot about some of the characters who we really should spend a little bit more time on from Chapter 2. Like, I think we've let Angela kind of go off without much interrogation. We've
really not talked that much about a lot of the events, huh?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about, like, large scope things, but we haven't really, like, zeroed in on a lot of these which I guess is just how we approach these things, right? I've seen in the Misericorde plenty of people drop in, like, very much more specific and grounded theories on events, but what do we think is Angela's dealio. I think by the end of this, we've gotten a pretty good picture of what she's like, but I'm curious what your take.
What do you mean by what is her dealio?
I mean, what is her dealio? What? So what? Wow, we really do speak two different languages sometimes, don't we?
Help me out here. Clearly, there's something you're looking for. Can you spin out a little bit more of what that is?
Okay. So, from the end of Volume 2, it seems like we've got a pretty good hook on Angela as a character. Angela is someone who it looks like had wanted to be a part of what Linbarrow had to offer and was spurned. Specifically, it seems like she had wanted to she had at one point been in a relationship with Catherine with a K, but had been turned away by the fact that people here don't seem to have that big of a problem generally with multiple partners. That kind of led to Angela probably regressing a little bit and taking solace in like being a very clean-nosed, follow by the book rule follower person, right? Because that's where she had some agency and moral high ground and maybe fueled a bit of her resentment towards the rest of the nuns. And when Hedwig finally comes out and she sees another opportunity to have the kind of relationship she's desired, to have someone like that in her court who is hers, someone who who solely belongs to her, and it hurts her in the end to see that again she's been misjudged someone else, the one person in the Abbey who I think she had reason to believe was more pious than her. And now she's got control of the Abbey, supposedly, everything she ever wanted, and no one really likes her. I think it's also worth putting out the theory there. Did Angela have a hand in killing Catherine with a C? She's clearly willing to take moves that will excise people she doesn't like from life at the Abbey.
And she has a weapon.
Yep, she has a weapon, and she seems pretty remorseless in doing so. Like, it seemed like the peeping Tom being taken care of by Crispin, that met with her approval. She was fine with that. She seemed ready to throw Catherine under the bus for Catherine's murder. Sorry about that. Without remorse, just on the basis that she had murdered someone else in the past and she was an undesirable piece here at the Abbey, right? Is there a world where Angela is the one that killed Catherine with a C?
Maybe.
Because maybe Catherine with a C was undesirable. I'm just saying, it's strange that we have, like, without really saying much about it, basically taken her out of contention when we know for a fact she is she is willing to take extreme actions to remove undesirables from her place, and she is now in control of it, right? It's worth remarking on the fact that we have kind of, without saying a word about it, implicitly it's that nah, she ain't got nothing to do with this. And not just because she was supposedly in the superior's office all night long, right? I don't believe that they were literally in their office talking from sundown to sunup about various things around the Abbey. I think maybe the superior had her in there for a certain amount of the evening and felt confident saying she was here all night, and Angela is content not to challenge that. I think there's a perfectly cogent argument that she indeed would have been available at the time to kill Catherine with the C. But I'm not really convinced that she did, and you don't seem that convinced either.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why? Like, why do we feel so strongly that it definitely was not Angela?
I don't know that I feel so strongly that it definitely was not Angela. I just don't have any particular reason I feel that it was. It doesn't seem
Despite the fact that she is the one whom we know carries a weapon around at all times.
Yeah, that's about the only thing. But then again, we know there's swords floating around.
Mm-hmm.
It also, she has other people she wishes to get rid of and doesn't stab them, so...
And that's a fair point. Yeah, she seems to go about things with a slightly more deft hand, right? Arranges for events to take care of the people she doesn't like. In this case, She's happy to let Crispin arrange to get rid of that peeping Tom. She's happy to misrepresent Hedwig's findings and push for Catherine to be removed to the Superior under false pretenses. Right? I think it's just a worthy exercise to be like, is there a reason we're not suspecting other people and have kind of settled pretty firmly into our rut here on Moira? Like why don't... Is there a world where Eustace is the one that killed Catherine with a C?
Maybe.
I mean, maybe. I think it's plausible, but I also don't find it very convincing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, again, strange. She's the one... has access to the sacristy at all times. She has access to the weapons, right? Why is that not something that we find more compelling? I guess aside from the fact that we, learned anyone could get in the soup's office.
And also that there's two swords floating around.
And there's two swords floating around, and she only had one apparently in there. I guess? Is that true? Do we know? No,
I don't... Do we know that the sword was kept in there? I forget. Yes, we think it was supposed to be kept in there as far as Hedwig knows. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I just put something together. Moira was leaving the sword for James.
Oh, yeah.
Because we know Moira knew the sword was there in the grass where Hedy found it, right?
Yep.
And to, again, explain that bit, she had to go there to collect Hedwig's clothes, which we know she did, and washed and returned to her. And Hedwig put them exactly where that sword was, so... Moira, I guess, just, is like, well, tee-hee. Whoops. I'm sorry. I'm just so nice, though, aren't I? Yeah, you can't say no to her. She's swell. Is there a world where Darcy is the one who killed Catherine with the C? She supposedly has access to the goats, and Moira really wanted us to harp on that for a bit. I know it's easy for us now to say that's her deflecting, but can we easily take her out of the running like that? Maybe she was worried that her friend Eustace was getting involved in something she didn't like.
I don't know. I will just come out and say I don't have any clear inclination about who killed Catherine. That is kind of foggy to me. I feel like I have a much clearer idea of what happens after this point in the bits where we see.
Really?
But it's not given me any further clarity on what happened in the past. If anything, it's given me less the more I settle this
I thought we
picture.
had both implicitly kind of come to the agreement that it was likely Moira.
The firmer I had thought it was Moira and tried to understand Moira's motives, the less it made sense to me that Moira killed Catherine. Because the closest I've gotten to something that makes Moira's actions make sense is if she is believing and trying to carry out this thing that the others don't believe in.
In which case, why would she
be killing Catherine?
Killing Catherine first.
Unless Catherine dying had something to do with it. But that'd be weird because it'd feel like the others would know.
Here's an idea. We know Catherine was a bit flighty. Maybe Catherine got that far and was like, all right, time to move on to the next thing. It's enough for me to have, we know she kind of moved from thing to thing, and while people did say she had been more invested in this than other things, that doesn't preclude her getting to a point and being like, nah, actually I'm more interested in learning to play chess again.
But we also hear it described that that's not the case of how she was acting at the end, right? People were describing her as
having gone a bit mad. Yeah. A lot of people are hanging out around Moira who seem to go mad with things.
Are there?
Remember Volume 1 where I brought up perhaps poisoning theory?
Mm-hmm.
That maybe Moira sharing snacks with Hedwig and stuff like that was like a low-key way of poisoning her with like psychoactives or whatnot to make her more susceptible to seeing things. Maybe Moira poisoned Catherine.
To what ends?
Catherine wasn't enough of a true believer in her own visions. All right,
but she died by stabbing.
She died by stabbing, but she went mad towards the end because Moira was feeding her more and more psychoactives to see if she could, get more info on this supposed vision that she had.
Spicy. I like this.
And then it didn't wind up recurring, and she's like, well, fuck, I've just created a monster. I guess I got to get rid of this now.
So not so much poisoning as dosing with a drug.
Dosing, right. Dosing with a drug of some kind. It's a thought. It gives me a first way to kind of latch onto an idea of how might Catherine with a C have died. What do we think is up with the dancing plague? Is that just a fun historical little background detail, or is there some bigger meaning to it? Does it tie into the plot in some other way?
Don't know.
That's a fair answer.
It feels like it couldn't not be relevant that the town's gone mad and people are dying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it feels like that can't not be relevant. It's too big of a thing to happen.
That's the story sense is tingling right there.
But I haven't figured out how anything there would fit in.
Well, dancing plague might have been maybe it was caused by something in the food.
Yeah, could be ergotism.
Right, and if they're getting their foods from the same places, maybe it's an indication that some of the same symptoms might be present in people around the Abbey. Maybe some of the people in the construction crew accidentally brought some of that with them.
I think that
maybe Moira handed out those apple fritters that were laced.
Did Hedwig eat one before having her vision?
Didn't she have one that day?
I don't
know if she had one directly beforehand. We know the dog vomited it up and then ate it again in her vision, but still.
I feel like, though,
Would you like some of the cheese, Hedwig? Don't worry what's in it, tee.
It's worth remarking that they're very much not getting their food from the same source as the village. They're not making regular supply trips down there. They're eating from a pantry they have on site.
Right, that has been stocked for a while.
And also that the builders didn't stop there. They rode right on through.
But their supply runs generally come from the village, right? James is the one that comes up with supplies and delivers the mail while he does it.
Is it supply runs? Is that what was described?
I didn't think he went back and forth just to deliver the mail that, I guess, is still being stolen?
He had also helped with the animals, right?
Yeah, so it's not... And Darcy obviously has some connection with the farmer and stuff who knew James. So it's not like they're completely without pores.
Yeah.
The barrier there is porous.
But it's not like the village is the lifeblood of the Abbey and they're eating the village's food to survive.
That you're right. That would be wrong of me to have it was wrong of me to characterize it that way. But even then, even with all that, I still don't know what else it could possibly mean for the larger plot. The way it could just be a fun historical detail, like this is what's going on then, but that, again, the book senses, the mystery senses say like, no, but what's the meaning of it, right? That's too big of a thing. It feels like it's a detail that is dropped with intention to get us to think about something specific. And aside from the possibility of like food poisoning or something like that, I don't know what else to make of it. Because we haven't seen anyone around the I remember when we first heard about it, my thought was like, oh, is the rampant spate of lesbianism being historically recorded as a dancing plague, right? And no, it's literally a dancing plague. People were fucking dancing. But we don't see anyone with symptoms like that at the Abbey.
Mm-hmm.
And even Darcy, did the proper thing and quarantined herself. Is that... Okay, here's a spicy take. Is that an explanation for Hedy's doppelganger?
I don't think so.
Hedy's sudden impulse... hear me out. Hedy's sudden impulse to act in strange and elaborate ways, in this case, becoming nude and running around everywhere. It's not like she hadn't expressed a desire for that, but there's clearly some... She describes like the tug, the pull of it, right? There's clearly
Which is pretty straightforwardly a description of sexual desire.
It is, but I'm also wondering, like, she had managed for so long, like, without it overwhelming her like this. Is it simply just, oh God, I'm around women now?
She'd been in a cell away from other humans her whole life.
Okay, but you are saying then that it's explicitly this probably isn't the right word for it, but it's a weakness of character, right? She feels these things and cannot help but abide by them now. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's fair. Whereas I might contend that is something she has always felt, and perhaps the dancing plague has gotten her to run around and dance naked in the rain.
I think her actions are far too directed for that to be plausible.
No, you are right, but it was worth. I was thinking of examples of like how might have this plague have manifested in things we've seen at the Abbey, and that was the only thing I could think of. And outside of that, I think I would be forced to concede that it just doesn't affect what we've seen at the Abbey. We've seen people like dance and sing in the Misericorde when there's music and jollity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's different from dancing till you die and fall over. I hate coming down on I don't know for this, but I don't know. I don't know what we're to make of the dancing plague.
I love it. It's a great answer.
Yeah. What about the wall? That's like the one magical-ish thing that has come up repeatedly in Hedwig's story that doesn't have an explanation reducible to James in a suit or Hedy being stressed.
What about what?
The wall in the library.
In the library. Okay, there's multiple walls that have magical things on them is why I asked.
Oh, no, you are so right, and I'm sorry for not clarifying. I'm talking about the wall in the library.
This is tricky because I'm perfectly willing to believe that there is a secret passage in the library that would allow one to get from one area to another that isn't publicly visible.
In fact, we know there is a secret passage in the library.
Yes, but do we think this is just the same one that folks know about?
That's the thing, is that, it would be weird if it was, right?
Regardless, to finish my sentence.
Sorry, yeah.
We know that secret passages are at play and that one could be here, but the way it's described is consistently very weird. Mechanically, it's hard for me to understand how it would work.
Right? Because if it is just another secret passage or the same secret passage, there's a whole process that go of opening the wall and getting behind it or whatever, right? You don't just kind of slip into there by accident.
And you also don't see out from inside, but folks outside see in.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like...
And it also isn't sometimes there and sometimes not at inconvenient moments.
While I'm willing to believe the seeing outside and seeing in thing is kind of like a bit of a elaboration on being in the secret passageway, right? You know that someone's out there. They don't know where you're at. It is still it's like, what convinced Angela that it was real, and then made her say later that she's done playing pretend?
I mean, that also, if it's a secret passageway, seeing someone disappear and reappear right in front of your eyes wouldn't be the experience you would have.
Correct. Do we think then that is indeed what it is? It's just a secret passage that is sometimes easy to get into, sometimes not. And whether or not Hedy's able to get into it depends on if it's been used recently or if it's open. And that the whole thing she showed Angela in the library was just, look, I disappeared behind a wall. And Angela's like, that's good, dear.
But that's not what Angela did, right?
But, Angela, at least until the very end, seemed to be legitimately disturbed by what she saw in the library.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right. So that's why I'm saying. So that doesn't make sense then. If it's just a secret passageway, how could she have seen something disturbing? Did she in fact see something disturbing? Because if she did, what could it be that happened in the library? It'd be hard.
Maybe there's something disturbing in the passage?
Even then, she didn't see, according to the description at least, she didn't go in, and we also didn't see anything disturbing in there.
It is important that no one but Hedwig has been in this strange extra-spatial library.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's not even when Angela says she's seen something she can't reconcile, It's not going into that space herself. It really makes me want to point to Hedy might be just making something up. I don't know to what end, or maybe misunderstanding something an experience she's having. But it really would be hard for me to believe that space exists in the way as Hedy describes it.
Which then makes one wonder, why does Hedwig tell the story in the way she does? Because
exactly.
She'd not only be falsifying the details of what she saw and experienced, but also of Angela's reaction. And that's interesting, especially now that we know Angela's there.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone
and Angela,
can just ask.
And that was a point I had brought up during Volume 1 when we're like, we don't know what the status of her telling the story is. There are other people the listener could ask to corroborate or refute the details in Hedwig's story. Mm-hmm. She can't just lie about what happened and expect to be the only authority on it. If she lies about something or tells something someone disagrees with, that will be found out. So maybe it is a thing like where there is indeed a secret passage to a hidden library that is open sometimes and not others. But I legitimately struggle with this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the one that makes me want to throw my hands up and say magic. You know what I mean? It would be so much easier to say, oh, magic wall. Any other mechanical explanation we come up with feels needlessly convoluted. There's no clean explanation. I guess the cleanest one we'd have is that Hedy was not well at the time and was seeing or experiencing things that weren't there, and then misremembered what Angela told her at the time. Evidence for that being
on several occasions after.
Yeah, or rather, the thing that Angela saw that made her feel uncomfortable in the library was not that passage. It was something else that she had seen that legitimately disturbed her. And the evidence for that being when Hedwig brings up the passage later, Angela's like, I'm tired of playing pretend. So it is both, but that also feels very convoluted, right? That feels like we're taking a lot of hoops to avoid saying just magic.
Mm-hmm.
Which never really feels good.
So, counterpoints.
Sure.
It doesn't take that many hoops to suppose secret passages are at play. It's a secret passage, and we don't know how the rest works. It's not as satisfying, but
then we still, then we've just taken one hoop and created a different hoop in a different location. Which is fine, because I don't disagree with any of that. See, we know secret passages are in play. In that a lot of them are known by at least, one person, and that there is a secret passage in the library that is known that goes downstairs.
Here's a slightly more fucked up explanation.
Sure.
Angela was always playing along with it because she was in love with Hedwig.
Ooh, here we go. Spin this out for me, but I like where this is going.
Hedwig just didn't get what's going on because how would someone who's lived in one cell their entire life understand the experience of going into and out of a weird secret passage mechanism they didn't know about? She leans on the wall in the wrong spot, falls through and is in another place, and then comes back out. Angela plays along. Because Angela
is infatuated with Hedwig and
and she's been playing along with Hedwig for quite some time.
I like that. And I was about to actually bring up a counterpoint, but I think this also explains that. I was about to mention, well, then what about the run away from Linbarrow with me? But that's also pretty readily explainable, right? That is also pretty readily explainable.
If she's not actually, I'm not saying this because I'm actually afraid Satan is stalking the monastery and there's secret walls that you can fall through with magic and so on. I am telling you I believe these things to manipulate you into going along with the relationship I have planned for us to have, where we elope together and...
Yes. This, I think, is the first time I've actually felt on much more solid footing about what's going on between those two. And that makes so much more sense given what we know about Angela's character, right? She wants Hedwig, and as she said after Hedwig confronted her about this, she's willing to wait and play the long game for that, right? She's like, no, you'll come around to it. We're stuck with your event. You'll eventually forgive me. So that does seem like a very her move. I guess then the one weak part in that is why Hedwig experiences it in that way, or chooses to relate it in that way, and not just, I stumbled into a secret passage, and earlier in this same story I related to a discussion where people were talking about secret passages in the library. And I guess, which is indeed a smaller hill to overcome, but still feels like a sticking point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I offered my theory on that already. As someone who's lived in one room her entire life, she would not be likely to understand what that experience is like. And we also know that she is prone to confirmation bias and explaining things in the terms that she is expecting to see and so on.
Okay.
So it would not at all be surprising to me if her accidentally stumbling into and out of a secret passage was something she indeed saw as though it were magic when it were not.
Counterpoint. She has been in several secret passages before and explicitly guided along them as well by Margaret.
True.
Margaret's shown her the secret passage outside of her, outside of the Anchoress's cell. She's been led through the secret passage in the barrel, and has been privy to discussions of secret passages before. It could be reasonably argued, quite cogently, that she is already aware that there are secret passages, and if she falls into one, her first thought would be like, oh, look, I found another secret passage. And not, I'm in a mystical extra-dimensional space where there are shelves and no books.
To be fair, she does not say she's in a mystical extra-dimensional space where there are shelves and no books.
Okay, that is true. But one could reasonably argue that it's much easier to say for her to think, oh, I've stumbled into a hidden passage, rather than, oh, magic was involved. This is a magical barrier.
Does she even say that it's a magical barrier? Or does she just relate the disorienting and strange experience she had?
I think you're right. She doesn't, I don't think she specifically says it's magical. She just very heavily leads the reader to believe that, doesn't she? I think it's specifically the scenes of like, I can see you, but you can't see me kind of thing, right?
Yep.
Like, how would that come to be without a strange magical... Maybe it's like a strange kind of like wicker wall thing where it's very easy to see from one side when it's lit up brightly from the back, right?
There we go. There are
Oh
mechanisms
shit! Did I just walk right into it? Did we get there? Hey! and from the other side, your eyes can't resolve stuff behind it, right?
Yep.
Because they're looking at it. Oh, never mind. This is buttoned up. I think we got this. Perfect. No notes. There we go. We solved your fucking wall for you. Here's another thing I want to talk about. What do we think Eustace's game is? Is her whole motivation been exactly as she said? Like, I just want to protect you, and you're gonna find, and I can't. You're not as canny as you think you are. I want to protect you. Do we believe that that's the entirety of her motivation?
I mean, presumably not the entirety, given that she says she has ulterior motives even, right? She wants things to be quiet there.
Right. She wants things to be quiet. She and doesn't want it found out that she was that closely connected to someone, to Catherine when she was doing it. But also does still believe in the end that James is the one that murdered her. Oh, you know what? We should actually ask that. Since we were talking about potential murder, do we believe James murdered Catherine?
My answer remains the same, which is it's unclear to me.
Okay. I guess the theories for and against would be that he had a sword. His sword he was traveling with, his cloak was found around there, and he was in the place he shouldn't have been that night.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The sword that was found on his cart. I need to go back and see that on rewatch, because I thought the two swords we had were paired.
Yeah.
Right? So it would be severely strange if somehow so either he's running around with the sword that is paired to Catherine's, or there's a third sword. 3 swords, maybe more. Or that's all a red herring, but... Oh, Catherine with the C. What were you up to? Who do you think she thought was the Antichrist? Do you think she had a definitive name in mind? Or do you think she just had a vision of a nebulous Antichrist?
I bet she did end up with a specific name in mind.
Yeah?
I feel like it's a lot harder for it to get folks worried about an actual murder plot if there isn't a target.
Okay. So it's not a scenario like, oh, we know that I've seen visions of the future. The Antichrist will come here in however many days. And we need to be ready to kill the Antichrist. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
People seemed concerned that there was indeed a plot to kill someone.
Just kill someone specific. Okay. Okay, I can accept that. In the event that you want to plot to kill someone, who's got your back in Linbarrow? Do we think like the whole like charity-run nun organization knew what was going on with them?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I bet they knew toward the end when multiple people described Catherine as going a bit mad.
Right.
It would be surprising if they didn't, seeing as they know when Hedwig seems to be getting a bit weird.
There's another theory from Volume 1 that I floated that I think maybe we should just revisit now that we know indeed that charity does lead most of the nuns in their own little power structure. Do we believe there's a world where the nuns got together and put it to a vote and the majority said Catherine should die for the greater good?
I still don't believe it.
Okay. And that's fine to not believe it. I'm just I had floated that during Volume 1 and then part of it became very real all of a sudden and I'm like, maybe it's worth revisiting. Again, it would give the benefit of that version of events would give everyone involved a convenient reason to want to shut up about it, even if they didn't agree with what was happening. But I think I'm out of things I wanted to talk about.
Yeah?
Yeah. Do you have any other things you want to get in here before we call it a sode?
Yeah, one thing I was wondering is, does having 2 swords make anything more explainable than previous? That's a new piece of info we got.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I guess it makes all of Hedwig's suspicions of Eustace based on mishandling the sword into a red herring if there are 2 of them. It could be that there is one sword secured away properly inside the sacristy at all times, and it's just the other sword that's out and about.
That's fully plausible.
Did Eustace know there were 2 swords?
I would find it strange if she didn't, especially if Catherine had been going around teaching everyone how to sword fight.
Catherine, 2 swords too. She couldn't have been teaching people how to sword fight with the real blade, though, right?
Catherine is maybe not the best judge of what is and is not a good idea. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, but I feel other people would have to agree to fence with her with a real blade.
Don't worry about it. I'll pull my punches. Come on, try to hit me. I'm just saying that's consistent with what we know of her as a character.
But is it consistent with what we know of everyone else?
Oh, you're right. They seem very swayed by her, liable to get swept up in her.
True.
I'm trying to strongman this side as best as I can here. I don't think that it was the case, but
on the flip side, if folks like Eustace don't know that there's 2 swords, why are there 2? How did they get here? It makes sense if there's 1 sword and 1 suit of armor, as there was, but 2 swords is like, were there always 2? Did someone steal one at the very beginning? Did someone bring in another sword?
Given that they were paired, it feels weird if there was one and then the other. Then again, we know Catherine kind of got attached to things, and maybe she just found two swords and decided to, give them similar inscriptions.
Did Eustace mention getting into blacksmithing at one point?
She mentioned it, and I think that's part of why she knew how to help with Flora's,
Did Eustace make a sword?
Straight up?
That would be dope. I want to believe this.
I feel like making a sword is a long and involved project and would not go without notice. I could believe maybe if you picked your time right, you could use the smithy for one evening and without folks knowing about it. I don't think you could keep it up over the long period of time it would take to do something like that. Especially not to a quality where it might be like, where it feels like an actually, put together weapon and not just something that you hashed out in a little while.
At the same time, we think we know Eustace did do something with blacksmithing and acquired knowledge of metallurgy. And so it doesn't seem beyond the pale that someone used the room there to smith something.
I thought it had when we got there it had seemed in disuse.
Yeah,
but then again, but Eustace really know how to get it up and going from the moment one, huh?
Right. I'm meaning like in the past.
Oh, in the okay.
Spinning it out, something like this. Catherine gets into cool swords, gets Eustace on it. It's like, hey, you seem smart. You should learn how to make these. We've got a cool sword. Help me make a copy. They make a copy. Catherine runs on to the next thing.
Okay.
I feel like...
So then in that case, it's not even a hiding thing. It's just, I make it. It would be... So, I can see that, except for the part where no one feels it's important to bring it up.
Yeah. That is a weakness, isn't it?
Like, there are certain things where, like, yeah, you can assume it's known and no one has any reason to bring it up. This feels like one that would strain credulity. Like, especially given how much talk Hedwig does of the sword, of these. You'd think maybe at some point someone would be like, Eustace was making one.
Yep.
In fact, like, if Moira, we know, is throwing shade on other of the nuns, maybe she would, Eustace was making a sword a few months ago. How strange. Right? She's willing to throw Darcy under the bus for just knowing about goats. Well, that is a very good point. 2 swords. Eustace, 2 swords, no last name given.
I think another thing worth thinking about, we haven't chatted about, is what are Bishop Richard's motives over the course of this episode?
Yeah.
There's a couple things going on with him, right?
Yeah.
Where, for one, it sure seems like he's sharing a bed with the superior.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So, like, what's up with that?
Oh, they fucking.
It also... He's involved in that final dramatic confrontation, luring up Hedwig and trying to hold her in place, but then also fleeing as soon as things get a little out of hand and not being seen again.
Yep.
So, like, what's going on there? Is he a willing participant? Is he an unwilling participant?
I think we talked about this a little earlier, but I think part of it might be because during that time when we were playing, I thought that was proof positive he had been a willing participant in this conspiracy, right? I think earlier in this discussion we brought up a much more compelling alternative, which is that he does believe Satan is real and his agents walk the earth and was convinced that Satan was before him. What that appears to mean is that Satan appeared before him and he said yes, which doesn't speak well to his character and maybe explains why he fled afterwards. Right.
To be fair, neither does fucking the resident mother superior speak well of his character as a bishop, so...
But, I mean... Yeah, but everyone there is fucking, so... Who's gonna judge him, huh? I think someone legitimately might judge him for being like, oh, wait, you worked with Satan and just kind of went along with it?
Yep.
Bro. That's
kind of a dick move.
Weirdly enough, I think that is the bridge too far for people. You're like, no, I just went down to the crossroads and saw this nice guy playing a fiddle and said, yeah, I could probably do that. So that's my guess based on his character, is that he was cajole. Maybe they threatened. Oh, maybe they threatened the soup. No, because he held Hedwig while they killed the soup.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly him falking the soup wasn't enough to stop him from going along with that. But maybe he was convinced. Oh yeah, because now the question is like, what convinced him to follow that lead? And
self-preservation is a powerful motive.
Yeah, I mean, that could well be the case, but it's worth it to say that explicitly. I guess self-preservation, like, I don't want to die, I'll work with Satan if Satan asks me to, I guess. And that involves bringing Hedwig to get killed along with the soup.
Here's another thing. There's a couple characters we haven't talked about almost at all so far.
Yeah.
One of them, let's talk a little bit about Flora.
Yeah.
We hear some interesting details. We know that she learned about magic glyphs somewhere.
Yeah.
She does not want to say who. She is willing to share a lot of things with Hedwig, but not even
who.
Not that at all.
Yep, that one goes with her. Yep.
And we also know that such a glyph is found carved in James's cell.
Both in James's cell and in the hidden room. Yep.
So what's up with that? Did the same person introduce them both? Did she learn how to do this from, if we're going on the theory that Moira is the one going out there and influencing James, did Moira teach this to Flora? And if so, why wouldn't Flora say so? Or did Catherine teach this to Flora? That'd make more sense if she doesn't want to despoil her memory of this person she was infatuated with, according to what we hear from others. But then why is it that...
The fact that it gets out to James's cell is what makes me more convinced on Moira than... Man, look at this nun. She can fit so many crimes.
It's going to be so funny when we're dead wrong and she is just sweet and normal.
Right? Like, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I am so worried that we're just falling for it. That, like, ZC is like, here's your convenient scapegoat for when you didn't think hard enough, motherfuckers. But the fact we went into Volume 2 with that in mind, and it did nothing but reinforce that.
Yep.
Is what makes me feel a bit more strange to that. But I guess maybe Moira or Moira's dude Sona, maybe? Maybe Flora doesn't want to say because the person is not someone who is there at the Abbey?
Okay.
You know, maybe it was the same princely figure that came and taught Flora that. And in that case, Flora doesn't want to say because it means admitting that I might have been talking with, the devil. Whoop.
Why would Moira do this then? Why would Moira teach this thing to Flora?
I don't fucking know. Just to give the kid something interesting, throw her a bone. She's the eternal kid in the place full of nuns fucking each other. She's never going to be part of that, by their own admission. Maybe it's just to throw the kid a bone so she'll have something interesting to do. In which case, my pal Satan. Okay, that Y is not the strongest, but could have been.
Was she told to place it in the spot she did? Or was that her own decision to go hide out in the walls and carve a thing?
I don't know. If she wasn't told to place it there, that certainly was a convenient spot where people would find it. And really close to Hedwig. I guess it would be hard to plan for them finding it, right?
Yeah,
but it sure did come in. It sure did. Well, she would know that Margaret has a habit of going around and finding secret passages. She might be reasonably certain that Margaret would stumble upon it at some point.
Yeah.
I don't think she would have known that, could have planned for Hedwig finding, Margaret showing it to Hedwig and Hedwig then making the connection between that and the one in James's cell.
Yep.
And also, that circle was no longer part of the wall, I guess. It got kind of blown out of the wall. That seems strange and unexpected, but yeah, that does feel like another a point where our argument is a little bit weak, doesn't it? Where it's like I feel like Moira makes the most sense, but maybe there's also a world where Flora indeed learned it from Catherine or Eustace. Flora finds it and is like, oh, I can work with this. And then just uses that as a... And then knowing someone else in the Abbey will recognize it, uses it, leaves it at the scene when she gets James out for good, and lets them draw their own conclusions.
Did Moira know that other folks had discovered the carving in the walls and were discussing it as though it was magic with a particular purpose and so on?
I don't know, because Flora seemed to have done that on her own, but Flora could have received some direction from whoever taught her, right? Some nudging in that direction. I don't know that Hedwig ever shared that. I would actually have to go back and reread it. I don't remember Hedwig sharing that with anyone other than Margaret, who showed it to her, right?
Yep.
But again, I could absolutely be wrong, right, with that, because she obviously had to discuss it with Flora. So, maybe. Well, as Eustace says, people talk when you're not around. Maybe she learned it from someone else. Maybe Margaret shared it with other people because she lives her own life. Could be Moira heard about it somewhere else and then just decided I can replicate that there and let people draw their own conclusions. It does feel like and I do feel confident in that. It does feel like a let people draw their own conclusions as the end game. It doesn't feel like the end game is specifically, oh, they'll definitely connect this to this thing Hedy knew about, and then the bishop will come in and be like, oh, that's a teleportation spell. He's long gone by now.
But then what sort of motive would that be? Why would you have a motive to let people draw their own conclusions regardless of what those conclusions might be? I don't think I've ever had a motive like that.
Because it leads it to be, it gives it this air of magic and unknowability.
So it's not to draw their own conclusions. It's
that kind of like just stops inquiry in its tracks. Like, oh, it's magic, you can't know.
So it is that we want them to draw a specific conclusion that it's magic.
Yes, yeah, you're right. I should have phrased that differently.
And that's interesting that it feels like that is both a very plausible thing, and yet it feels like, and it's hard for me to talk around this without spoiling another different game. Sure feels like if that was the thing you wanted to do, you would place it in a way that's more public and seeded so that everyone knows about it.
Yep.
And make it a big thing, because it would feel really easy for just folks to never notice or pay attention to that, and then this whole bit to flop.
Would it? Or I'll push back on that part, because she would know who is visiting.
Okay, here we go. So she knows that the bishop will think that this is a magical sigil to
I don't know
escape.
that she'll know that Bishop will think it. She'll know that Hedwig will think it. And she knows Hedwig has been going out to...
So she does know that Hedwig has seen this and
she
believes
ran
it
into
to be
Hedwig
magic.
on that one evening when she was coming back and found Hedwig, and Catherine found Hedwig passed out and whatnot. I think maybe Moira could put two and two together at that point, especially if she knows... especially if she already suspects, as most people do, that that's what her real job is.
Wait. But what's that have to do with Hedwig knowing that they're magical sigils?
Oh, the knowing they're you're right. That
because there's some multiple things here. Being suspicious that Hedwig is investigating is one thing.
Yep.
Thinking that Hedwig will recognize that there's magical sigils at play and draw a connection.
Yep.
Is another.
Oh wait, no, she can be sure the bishop is going to be there because the bishop is the one who's going to take him away in the end.
Yeah.
Right.
So we are on the assumption
okay,
that...
Yes.
So she's doing this for the benefit of the bishop.
Okay, yes, I can see that.
That tracks. I'm willing to accept that.
Yes, that tracks a lot better than the other. And just knowing the bishop by disposition, right, the bishop's been there before, I don't have any problem believing that. And the fact that Hedy can connect it to something that Flora did is unintended. Turns out to be, I guess, beneficial, but unintended. Yeah, that feels... That honestly feels a lot... I'm so glad we chatted about this.
Or here's another angle.
Yeah?
Could be that it's not unintended. Could be that it was a backup plan, where the idea is, if I am under suspicion, there will be someone else who will have been carving a thing like this around here that I can finger for it.
Oh, you are so right.
So that would give a reason to both get Flora carving it and use it there.
And not
it's
necessarily
out there
share
for the
it with
benefit of the
anyone.
bishop. It's here, but in a location most people won't see.
Yep.
And
Where I'll be able to use it if I need to. Oh. And then... So then why is it gone now?
walls crumble. I'm still on
okay,
walls
okay.
crumble theory. I don't have a better explanation than that.
Okay. That's fine, but it is a little weak. But yeah, but all in all, that sounds a lot more convincing. Like, because that's a whole lot of weird, disparate elements. But again, we could fit so many crimes into this one nun.
So,
Hey, ZC, if it's not Moira who's guilty in Volume 3, remember my friend Mr. Jackson. He could use a word with you.
unsportsmanlike conduct.
Is it? Or is it using all of the tools at your disposal to solve the mystery?
It's unsportsmanlike conduct. It'd be like the detective paying off the police to arrest the wrong person.
Right. Yes. So it solves the so they win. They get what they want in the end. They solve the crime.
I see.
They get to declare victory.
So,
What's the problem here?
let's talk a little about one more person we haven't spoken about
Sure.
much yet. Let's talk about Margaret.
Yeah.
She has a pretty benign arc this episode, right? With like, oh, I'm anxious about my dad's in town,
Yeah.
right? And yet, we know that she was among the inner circle.
Yep.
Are we totally overlooking her? And just by virtue of, oh, she's quiet and is occasionally doing mischief, messing around, but otherwise a generally benign person that we like.
Seems very to be good friends with Hedwig.
Yep, down to earth, normal, but like, is that so? She was in this inner circle. Like,
Yeah.
should we be going back and looking at more things about her? She knows that there's secret passages around.
Yep.
She gets into places she shouldn't be. She's got a rebellious streak.
And I think
Like-
part of the reason she evaded suspicion from us is that, again, we had, I guess, like, our number one suspect only got more suspicious this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't any real reason to try to broaden the net. But you're absolutely right in that. And there's also something to be said for her arc where she seems ashamed in meeting her father. And it's played off as like, oh, I haven't really done anything to merit what you've,
But what if it's I've done something that would
exactly.
merit
What if
his
it is
disgust?
I've done something that I can't take back, and would yeah. I guess my reaction to that is that would mean that that she has displayed in the wake of Catherine's death. She's still doing stuff like messing with the superior's portative, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would mean that in the wake of that, she's able to dissociate enough from it where she can still pull regular old pranks.
Yep.
But at this point has finally crushed her, which feels like a stretch, not impossible, but a stretch. Whereas we have, just without really saying it aloud, supposed that Moira is just good at able to hide her true intentions. Man, this poor nun.
To be clear, I definitely don't believe Margaret culprit theory. I just find it
No.
really interesting that, like, we've talked a lot about everybody else in that inner circle,
Except for Margaret.
and just let Margaret slip right by, and
that
that's
is worth
interesting.
pointing out. That is because she does come across as kind of unassuming, very soft-spoken, polite, and helpful. I guess it's just the remorse at the end, right? Which I guess also kind of like, what if that is remorse over having killed Catherine? Maybe she felt like it was the right thing to do in the moment and now feels like, But also give a good story reason for her father of all people to be the one that shows up. But it's going to be sad when Catherine with a K gets blamed for her death along with everyone else in Volume 3. In none.
So that's another interesting segue. Do we think this means that Catherine gets out of there when this place burns down? Do we think everyone dies in a fire except for Catherine or something?
We don't get... So we know only a few people die, the Infirmary and the Soup, right? And maybe we got some other names. I'm not willing to say that means that we know they're dead for sure, but rather that they're reported as dead. Maybe Moira gets away. But it fakes her own death. But I think Catherine with a K will necessarily have to either survive or die at the very end. Right? Because otherwise there's no real way to blame her for it.
Yep. I had a wrong-headed theory otherwise. I figured she was going to be the one to die at the end of this chapter, and that didn't happen, and in retrospect, it's pretty clear why.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would be hard to blame her for the events if she died in the middle of them, rather than at the end, or not at all.
Do we think Flora, Bridget, and Violet are going to come back in Volume 3, or are they just kind of off on their own thing now?
Yeah, that's another thing we haven't talked much about, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's hard for me to tell exactly what went on there. It seems like a kind of crappy escape plan. It also the scream seems like if you were trying to escape, maybe you wouldn't scream and draw folks to your area.
The scream could have been involuntary.
Yeah.
Flora could have crushed her leg on something.
Right, so that's what I mean. So it seems like things didn't go good. It seems like if someone screams, it would have to be something other than the escape plan going the way it was meant to.
Right.
Is Flora out there and they're all on the lam and Flora has both legs splinted up, just hobbling?
And it's like, and where are they planning on going from there, right? Are we going to encounter them in Volume 3 and they're going to have the dancing plague?
Oh, no. I hate that.
They're going to go to the town for help and encounter everyone with the... Oh, no. That's what's going to happen, isn't it? Oh, no.
It just... There's things that make it seem like an escape, like that there's no response when everybody is out searching for them. It doesn't seem like they all could have died instantly.
Yeah, that would string. So them not responding implies they don't want to be found.
But then the scream also makes it seem like something went wrong.
Right.
And also the plan itself seemed pretty crappy if it was indeed an escape. So
right, because they just sled off with nothing but the clothes on your back. But then again, it also did seem like that was the plan because Flora made sure to tie up loose ends.
Yep.
Right? They're kids. Who says they're good at planning shit?
True.
Maybe their plan was go to the village, look for help there, and try to get back to, and try to get passage to somewhere else.
Are they still kids? How old is Flora by this time?
I think she was very early 20s. I say
yeah, I was
kid,
gonna say.
I think we've had this discussion, but I say kid, she is either a late teenager or very young adult.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless, people treat her like a kid, and she acts like one.
Did I have anybody else?
We haven't talked about Adela.
True. And that's unfortunate because Adela's kind of rad. I have
up until the point where she said she was just trying to win the bet. She had my uncritical support. All right. I was firmly in the Adela Cross Hedwig corner up until she said, I'm just trying to win the bet. I was batting for her for so long, saying no, it's genuine. She's sure, maybe that's part of it, but it also seems like she legitimately cares about Hedwig as a friend and would, legitimately wants to spend more time with her. But no, then she tried to throw it all away just under the excuse, I'm just winning the bet. Adela, my girl, who was up here to do the sherry order that is going to go to Spain and get on Christopher Columbus's ships.
It is. So that let's talk about that. That we do now have like a reason that we know now. I don't remember if we learned it this chapter or if we only just put it together this chapter and it was told to us in the first. But we know now that Adela's specifically here for the sherry.
Yeah.
And the sherry seems to matter. Like, it seems to be, there's a lot of money involved in it as well.
In the sherry, yep.
There's
a lot of money in the sherry stand.
There's enough money involved for them to plausibly be like, yes, we need to send a specific person to go make the sherry and tend it and make sure it's good.
And they're getting very frequent updates.
Yep. And that all, like, it hadn't seemed plausible to me in chapter 1 that, like, there's no way that sherry could be this important. Sure looks like it's this important. Either it is or there's something else going on under the hood there. But one way or another, like, it's important enough to have Adela be there and to send a lot of money for it.
It could be that the sherry is a feint, but part of selling it means selling someone to do it, right? Maybe indeed the price they're getting for it is not the same as what they'd be getting for the sherry, but by going through the motions, they get that deniability, right? And that there is indeed something else happening there.
Maybe the sherry... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Maybe the sherry is all for Supermom's tremendous drinking habits, like that one Monty Python sketch about the vicar who had installed the sherry tank underneath the church.
There you go. Here's my thought about it. The soup complains pretty openly about having to do the frequent updates about the sherry, right? It might be she doesn't know that if there is indeed a different purpose, she wouldn't know what's up with it. Eustace is the one who takes care of the books, though. It feels like Eustace would know.
Maybe.
Like, given how laissez-faire the soup seems to be, I would believe that she is just like, why do I have to keep doing the monthly updates for this? This is ridiculous, and does it anyway.
It takes years to make this, and the monthly update is just going to be, it's still not done yet, like we know.
Quite how much money they've taken in for it, whereas Eustace would have to. I think because she's the one who's got the books, right? Then again, she would know how much money the soup. It would be weird if the soup didn't understand how much money they were receiving for this, and just. That's such a strange angle. They're building a mech. They're building a mech. Again, we're back to mechsploitation theory.
That's what the clock tower is for.
That's what the clock at the right appointed hour, the clock tower will open and out will stride.
And a gigantic medieval clockwork angel mech. Okay, no, that's rad as hell. Write this, someone.
I think Rush already did a concept album called Clockwork Angels. Except that was more steampunk, if I remember correctly.
We need more mecha that are in the wrong historical era and setting. Ever since I saw bits from that one with, like, the ninja and the lady who does puppet control in medieval Japan... Yep. And controls puppet mechs with all her fingers and toes, I've been like, okay, but actually, mech is timeless now. Everything can be mech if we believe.
Is someone riding on top of someone else's shoulders a mech? Is Ratatouille a mech?
That's Voltron. Ratatouille is Voltron.
Okay. I'm glad we've come to this vital conclusion.
I think if Neon Genesis Evangelion is a mecha anime, it follows incontrovertibly that Ratatouille must be.
You know what? That's fair. I'll accept this. That is a vital point we have made here in our discussion of Misericorde Volume 2.
It is.
Did we wind up talking about all the nuns now?
We haven't talked too much about Charity and Marta, but I also don't have too much to say, I don't think.
Yeah, I feel...
The one thing I had to say was about the secrets and of the, like, calling folks into the council, and we talked about that.
Yeah, and that lines up with things we've said before and things we said already during our playthrough. I don't think they are any more involved in what we are... in the stuff we are looking at, right? I think... I think, like, obviously the power that Charity at least holds is real, but I don't think that necessarily implies she knows everything that's going on and would have to be involved in the conspiracy we're looking at. Yeah, but it's worth saying aloud. Do we hit all of them? Poor Soup.
Poor Soup.
I don't like her, but she didn't deserve to die. You know what I mean?
Yep. And I feel like the Abby under Angela is definitely going to be worse off than the Abby under Soup.
Oh yeah, because
it's one of those things where the people who want the power and are driven to obtain it are absolutely the worst ones to give it to. You'd rather have it with someone that's kind of feckless and incompetent and not holding stuff down, but things kind of organically go okay because people are people and they continue living their lives, rather than the person who says they're going to change and fix everything if they can just have this power and everything's going to go great.
Angela
not
feels
that this
like
is
a
about anything
micromanager.
else outside of Misericorde.
No. Oh no. That's not related to anything. I don't see how that could be related to anything. Angela does feel like a micromanager, though. It seems like she's not going to let well enough be and is going to insist on sticking her nose into all the processes and things that have been working to keep the Abbey going. The moment she fucks with Darcy in the kitchen, it's all over.
I also feel like folks are just going to freeze her out. They were already freezing her out before, and they were freezing the Soup out, and now that she's also the Soup, they'll just double freeze her out.
And the thing is, it's not just that. It's also that she came to them seemingly willing to make amends, and they gave her the chance, and she immediately threw it back in their face.
And now why would anyone go along with what she wants to do? What's she going to do, stab them? If it's ruled by violence, then somebody else will pick up a sword.
Maybe it's Angela letting her out because she needs Hedwig to have, so she can have some measure of control over what's going on in the Abbey.
Oh, I like this actually. I had floated like, oh, Adela and Angela are the two people who had a particular connection to Hedwig in a certain way. What if it's one of them? But if Angela's like, oh fuck, I thought I had this all under wraps. I had my big plan to get rid of the people who weren't supposed to be here that I thought were undesirable, and everything's going to go perfectly now that I'm running it. And hey, it's been a couple weeks and everything's gone to shit.
Congratulations on your promotion to prioress, Hedwig.
I'm going to listen through your story to make sure that it's you weren't manipulating me or being dishonest with me, and you actually believed the things that I heard from you and so on. But now that I know you've been generally straight with me, and
no, they haven't.
Heyo! Then I may as well let you out, so I have one person here who maybe kind of sort of believes my side of events, and hopefully will fall back in love with me.
Please. Hey, Hedy. Hey, girl. Hey, girl, hey.
One specific thing I want to touch on. Somebody we've already talked about a lot.
Yeah.
But a little bit more, I think, is due. Is Catherine too. So
yep.
Now we know a little bit more about how she died. We know it was not through the beheading. We know there were 2 other stab wounds, I think, or multiple other stab wounds.
Yep, and the beheading
ones.
happens after.
So that's a thing that's new.
Great theory. She was beheaded first, then killed by stabbing.
No, I love this. Like a chicken running around after the head's cut off for a while. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Okay, moving on.
We also know that everybody is pretty sure that her grave is right there, and that there seem to have been multiple witnesses for having dug it and buried her there.
Yep. And
to the point where
Eustace
people are
went back and added that scapula to it as well.
Wait, what?
Didn't am I misremembering that? I thought the No, I'm misremembering something. The superior had Eustace go back up and dig, put the bones for the prior soup in her grave. Right, that's what I was misremembering. I remembered Eustace had been up there adding more bones to graves, and it was for the other soup. Okay, sorry.
So
moving on.
We also know the interesting detail. So, 2 interesting details. One, folks are confident enough that they're willing to say, "Hey, here's a shovel. If you doubt us, dig it up."
Yep.
Don't do that to us. It would suck, but you can find your answer. On the flip side, we also know Eustace seeded that story about Hedwig believes Catherine might still be alive. That's not what Hedwig claims at any point.
Right.
That's something that it's a fun one because I feel like that's you seed the fan theory in the story. You have someone present the fan theory from chapter 1 and then knock it down. But
maybe that was still Eustace running interference for her. Being like, we can play it off as you believing she's still alive.
Because that's better than suspecting somebody else here of doing something awful. Okay, yes, I think I agree with you now.
Yeah.
It's just interesting.
Despite what Eustace says, still in the end trying to...
So are we then willing to put Catherine's still alive theory to bed for good?
Yeah. I don't think there was much of a Catherine is still alive theory that doesn't involve some manner of body doubling that I don't think we're ready to go for.
Yeah, either a wild
Unless we discover that one of the nuns still there is her twin, right? Maybe that's true of other Catherine and her sister.
Unless there's either a wild degree of body doubling going on, or everybody is in on it.
Or
it's
magic
hard.
is real to a degree where it's pointless to try to figure things out. Right? I feel like if she's alive, if the answer is literally, she's alive because of magic, then I'm like, okay. All right, well, I'm enjoying the story, but I'm not going to try to solve it anymore.
She was beheaded, but she got better.
Just sewed it back on. It works. Don't worry about it. I tried it once. My uncle tried it one time, and it...
This happened to my buddy Eric.
Came back with an entirely new head. Strange fella. You'd like him. Just the worst kind of tall tale shit. I love it. I love this. Got anything else for us?
I don't know. I feel like that's been most of what's on my mind.
Yeah. And I think we hit all the things I had in mind in case we needed to get up on something. So I think we can rightfully call it to a close.
Fair enough.
I think we did a good discussion, Sode. I hope you all enjoyed it. It's so much fun when we get the chance to really go into a game like this. And as much as we love a lot of the games we do on the channel, not all of them are mystery-oriented in the way that would reward doing long discussions like this, right? But I hope you all enjoyed it. I know it's going to be a while till Volume 3 comes out, so I hope you'll, be here still when we do that.
Sit there and stew and become ever more hyper-focused on more and more niche aspects of the game, as the fandom is wont to do.
There we go.
In the interim.
Obviously, we will play whatever ZC's game in the interim is, because I think it's fair to say that we are fans now. And if you watched all the way to the end, stick around. We're playing Of the Devil currently on the channel, and that's a fun mystery game that maybe you'll enjoy as well.
It's cool.
It's cool. It has androids in it.
The art is good.
The art is also very good. All right, bye.
Peace.
Smash that like, comment and subscribe.